They all cheered loudly, and resonant chants rose one after another from the battlements, gradually unifying into a synchronized rhythm that was incredibly uplifting. The archers who had successfully slain the giant ape were surrounded by their comrades, receiving praise and admiration from their tribesmen. The cheers from the wall also snapped the enemy troops out of their stunned silence. Two of the giant apes, whether out of rage or grief, let out a roar and plunged into the moat with a splash. They then drove away the fish and dragged their companion's corpse out of the water, along with a few large fish that refused to let go even in death. The two giant apes grabbed the large fish from the corpse and hurled them forcefully toward the battlements. But none hit their mark, as the warriors easily dodged them. The other giant apes rushed over as well, gathering around the corpse and howling incessantly. Some even pulled out the Han tribe's arrows from the body and snapped them in two with their hands. Gazing at their fallen companion, the other giant apes seemed to go mad, running wildly beneath the city walls in an attempt to leap onto the battlements and kill the archers who had slain their kin. Seeing this, Yin Rue and Du Er quickly organized their troops, positioning all archers behind the arrow slits. Just as the horde of giant apes leaped forward once more, the archers released their deadly arrows. Another series of pft sounds, the sound of dreams being pierced. This time, all 23 giant apes that launched the attack together dropped their heavy swords. Some, struck by multiple arrows, died on the spot. Others, with less severe injuries, quickly crawled back to the shore after falling into the weak waters. Then, bearing their son by like fangs, they forcefully pulled out the arrows embedded in their bodies. Each time an arrow was extracted, it tore away 2 liang of flesh or widened the original wound several times over, causing incessant bleeding. Even if they didn't die immediately, they likely wouldn't survive for long. This round of confrontation ended once again in the giant ape's defeat. Having suffered heavy losses, the apes calmed down and refrained from continuing their reckless attempts to scale the wall. The wall was simply too high, impossible to climb. In the end, they had no choice but to resign themselves to their fate. Yet this did not stop them from attacking using other methods. It was unclear who among the totem warriors gave the order, but around 600 archers noisily gathered about 20 meters from the base of the wall. They drew their crude bows and unleashed wave after wave of arrows toward the defenders atop the wall. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Arrows flew toward the battlements of Hanyang City as if they cost nothing. But how much power could these shoddy, poorly made bows really muster? With uneven thickness at either end of the bows, how accurate could the arrows possibly be? The constant clink, clink, clink of arrows striking the walls filled the air. Some arrows didn't even clear the wall, crashing directly into its surface. Others overshot the battlements, landing inside the city. The warriors on the wall had long taken cover behind the arrow shields. Not a single one was sacrificed, nor was anyone even injured. The 600 cannibal archers fired 7 or 8 volleys, yet achieved no results whatsoever. The squad leaders below soon called for a halt. After all, their arrows were limited, with each archer carrying only 20 to 30, that they couldn't afford to waste them like this. Watching as the enemy's arrows proved utterly useless, the defenders on the wall cheered once more, their morale soaring higher and higher. In contrast, the enemy below either hung their heads in frustration or seethed with rage. However, among them were some clever individuals. Aware of their arrows' poor quality, they resorted to a more primitive attack strategy. Soon, someone began shouting loudly, and a large portion of the crowd split off, rushing toward the river. They showed no interest in the rice plants that resembled wild grass. Spotting a main road, they followed it to the riverbank. Because the rice paddies were muddy and overgrown with weeds, no one ventured into them. The hundreds who reached the river quickly returned, each clutching a few cobblestones, which they piled up at the base of the wall. The red-haired giant's eyes lit up at the sight of the stones. Without a word, they grabbed the rocks and hurled them at the figures on the wall. Yin Rue, who had just leaned over to peer down, suddenly saw a dark shadow flying toward his face. Startled, he jerked his head back, just in time to hear a heavy thud as something struck the wall. A fist-sized cobblestone had smashed right beside the arrow slit, then bounced back into the moat below. Inspired by this, the other giant apes and totem warriors wasted no time. They picked up stones and began hurling them at the wall. In an instant, hundreds, even thousands, of cobblestones rained down like a storm. The warriors crouching beneath the arrow slits curled up on the ground, covering their heads. Many cried out in pain as they were struck, and quite a few were injured. Quick, retreat from the wall. Leave some in the watchtowers. Everyone else, get down now. Clutching his head, Rue dove into a watchtower. Hearing the command, the other warriors swiftly withdrew from the wall. Some were hit a couple of times while retreating, grimacing in pain. Eventually, they all dashed through the hail of stones and reached the base of the city wall, pressing tightly against the inner wall to avoid the flying rocks. The elder and the rat shaman standing inside the gate were startled by the sudden quiet. After a moment's thought, the elder immediately said, "Go check the carpentry workshop. I remember there should be quite a few spare shields there." The chief prepared them for military expansion. "Bring all those shields over. If that's not possible, get some wooden planks instead. As long as they can block the stones." Du standing nearby, heard this and his eyes lit up. Without another word, he sprinted toward the lumber mill. The other warriors quickly followed behind him. The stone rain didn't last long and soon came to a stop. After all, they had only made one trip to the river, and the stones they brought were limited. At most, they could only throw a few rounds before running out of ammunition. Just as they ran back to the river to gather more stones, Du and the others returned from the carpentry workshop with plenty of shields and wooden planks. A crowd of them swarmed back up to the top of the wall. Meanwhile, the warriors who had been injured earlier were sent to the warehouse in the military camp for treatment. Seeing dozens of wounded coming down, the chieftain of the snake tribe hurried to the rat shaman and the elder to request herbs and tools, preparing to have his tribesmen treat the injured. The snake tribe was skilled in healing and medicine, and in their usual trades, they had supplied the Han tribe with large quantities of medicinal herbs. Now was the perfect time to put them to use. The elder was pleased to hear this and personally led the snake chieftain to fetch the supplies. A few minutes passed, and the second wave of stone attacks began. This time, however, the warriors on the wall were prepared in advance. Some held shields individually, while others lifted wooden planks together. The constant clatter of stones hitting the planks echoed without end. But this time, not a single person was injured. The morale, which had dropped due to the earlier injuries from being hit, rose once again. Some even arrogantly propped up a huge plank in the gap of the battlements, just to show the enemies below, "We've got shields now, you still can't touch us." This provocation quickly had an effect. Earlier, when the cries of those hit on the wall were heard, the totem warriors below had been thrilled. After trying so many methods, they finally found a way to hurt them, so they threw stones with even more vigor. But not long after they resumed throwing, the defenders with tied-up hair on the wall had already come up with a countermeasure. Watching the silver-helmeted man on the wall hiding behind the large plank and sneering coldly at them, the totem warriors below lost their motivation to keep throwing. Only the unwilling members of the cannibal tribe, picking up stones, focused on hitting Rue's plank. Their immense strength made the plank thud loudly, even forcing Rue back a few steps. Rue stopped holding his ground stubbornly. After taking over a dozen flying stones, he retreated beneath the battlements once more. After this round of stone attacks ended, the totem warriors of the cannibal tribe were completely out of ideas. They circled the city wall a few times but found no weaknesses to exploit for an attack. In the end, they had no choice but to stand off against the defenders of Hanyang City. With all 4 city gates blocked, they thought, "Let's see what you do now. You can't survive without food or water, right? If you don't come out to hunt, you'll starve to death. Let's see if you come out or not." It was natural for them to think this way. They had never entered Hanyang City before. Who knew what it was like inside? They had no idea what the people in the city ate, assuming they survived by hunting every day, just like them. Rue also made a round along all 4 sides of the wall. Seeing that all 4 gates were blocked, he shook his head helplessly. Even if they had the strength to fight their way out. But you had already given orders not to engage the enemy outside the city. Moreover, if they truly ventured out, the Han tribe would inevitably suffer casualties. Perhaps that was what the chief had in mind. Otherwise, why forbid them from counterattacking? And so, the stalemate continued. The rat shaman had his people collect the stones that had been hurled into the city and sent them up to the city walls. Now, they didn't even need to gather stones themselves. They could simply use them to pelt the enemies below. The siege of Hanyang City remained at a standstill. Meanwhile, your forces continued their march. At the current pace, it would take another 2 days to reach the ridge of Tugu Hill. However, the journey didn't hinder your ability to stay informed about the situation in Hanyang City. As soon as the attack by the cannibal tribe's totem army ended, the rat shaman immediately sent Bazooka to deliver another letter, briefly outlining the battle and its outcome, and once again requesting the chief's instructions on how to proceed next. After reading the letter, you finally felt a sense of relief. It was almost noon, so you ordered everyone to find a place to rest and eat before continuing. The group quickly found a suitable spot to halt. Some began preparing food, while others attended to personal needs. Seizing the moment, you started writing a message to Shu Wu and the others. Everyone has done well. Ensure the safety of our tribesmen at all costs. Treat the wounded promptly. Additionally, try to lure the enemy toward the west gate and prevent them from getting too close to the rice fields, to avoid damage that could lead to reduced harvests. Do not kill the enemy indiscriminately, they will become our slaves in the future. Spare as many as possible. We'll need them for labor. You laid out the next steps directly in the letter and then had Bazooka deliver it back. Over the following 2 days, the cannibal tribe's totem army continued to press the siege on Hanyang City. They stationed the majority of their forces at the 4 city gates, while the rest were sent into the mountains to gather firewood and hunt in the surrounding areas. By this time, you had already led your troops across the river from another route, stealthily advancing toward the slopes of Tugu Hill. Just as your forces were moving quietly, tribes coming to participate in Hanyang City's April market began sending trading teams toward the city. However, before they could reach their destination, they encountered the cannibal tribe's hunting warriors in the mountains. The cannibal hunters, struggling to find game, saw these trading teams as easy prey. Fortunately, most of those sent to trade in Hanyang City were the strongest warriors from their respective tribes. Moreover, the cannibal hunters were not numerous and operated in small groups. Under these circumstances, even if some were captured or killed, a few always managed to escape. After all, these were seasoned traders familiar with the Han tribe, who knew the terrain along the route like the back of their hand and could find their way back even blindfolded. Thus, before your forces could arrive to rescue them, most had already shaken off their pursuers. Lost in the mountains and unsure what to do, they wandered aimlessly. Another day passed, and your troops finally arrived at Tugu Hill. There, you immediately encountered a few foreign warriors who had been separated from their groups during their escape. "Great chief of the Han tribe, please help us," pleaded a man who looked utterly destitute. "Several of our tribesmen have been captured by those totem warriors. They might still be alive. We beg you, Chief Han, to lead your troops and rescue our captured kin." This man was from the Fidor tribe. Out of the 15 tribesmen who had set out together, only 6 or 7 had managed to escape, and even they had been separated during the flight. In the end, only 2 had managed to meet up with you. "Please, Chief of the Han tribe, help us. Our Cha tribe also has clansmen captured by the enemy. The Han tribe is powerful with excellent weaponry. We beg the Han tribe's chief to send troops and help us rescue our captured clansmen. Otherwise, it may be too late." A short man from the Cha tribe knelt before you as he spoke. "Please rise first," you said. "It's not that I don't want to help you, but the enemy's numbers are overwhelming. You may not have reached the outskirts of Hanyang City and seen the current situation. The cannibal army has attacked. Over 1,000 male totem warriors have surrounded all 4 city gates. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to slip out quietly and come here." You first rejected their plea, then explained the siege crisis in Hanyang City. The enemy far outnumbered your forces, and self-defense was already a struggle. How could you spare the strength to help others? "So that's how it is even Hanyang City is surrounded?" The short man from the Cha tribe exclaimed in shock. "Then, has the Han tribe's chief come up with a plan? Without 1 or 2,000 men, how many people does your Han tribe have outside Hanyang City?" The short man asked in surprise. "Most of our clansmen are trapped inside the city. Only a few of us are outside." Seeing the disappointment in their eyes, you paused, then continued. "But it's not hopeless. You want to save your clansmen and we want to save ours. Our goals are the same. Besides, aren't the Han tribe's clansmen also your kin? Which tribe doesn't have relatives inside Hanyang City? So, the difficulty we face isn't just one tribe's problem. We must face it together. If each tribe contributes about 100 men, we can quickly gather 1 or 2,000. Wouldn't that make the fight easier?" Your words resonated deeply with the men, and even the warriors beside you felt the same. Many of them had originally been purchased from various tribes, and though it had been barely over a year, how could they so quickly forget the lands where they grew up? It's worth mentioning that the lower-ranking warriors didn't know the full strategic objective of this operation. They only knew that Hanyang City was besieged by the cannibals' totem army and that the chief had brought them out to seek reinforcements. With the enemy's numbers so great, the chief intended to gather forces from surrounding tribes before launching a counterattack. As for the plan to annex the surrounding tribes, only the 3 highest-ranking officers and you were aware. No one else had considered that possibility. Still, you believe that even if the warriors were told, it wouldn't matter. They now lived comfortably in the Han tribe. Wouldn't they want their former clansmen to enjoy the same life? Surely some would think that way. The men from the Cha tribe and the Fidor tribe nodded quietly in agreement. You're right. If one tribe doesn't have enough people, let's pool our forces. We can definitely gather 1,000 or 2,000, they said. Han tribe chief, you speak wisely. But even if our 2 tribes contribute, we'd only manage 200 to 300 men at most. We'd still be outnumbered. With just our 3 tribes, it wouldn't be enough, you replied. But I can find a way to get other tribes to contribute. The Xianxia tribe and the Snake tribe were also attacked. The remaining members of the Snake tribe are already inside Hanyang City, trapped like the rest. However, there are 3 people from the Xianxia tribe in the city. I can arrange to get them out and have them return to gather more men. They should be able to contribute another 100 or 200. As for the other tribes, they should come as well. You analyzed to the few people. But our tribes are all too far away. This back and forth will definitely take quite some time. The men from the Fidor tribe also raised their concerns. That's not a problem. We have horses and cavalry. I can dispatch cavalry to escort you back. Additionally, for requesting your troops this time, the Han tribe will offer generous rewards. Although, in principle, this is a matter for all of us, your tribe is relatively small in numbers. Asking you to contribute so many people at once is indeed hard to accept. But here's what you can do. Go back and tell your chieftain that I said to invite all the chieftains to bring their men and reinforce us, to jointly fight our enemies. After the war, the Han tribe will also provide substantial rewards. As for these rewards, I can give you a sneak peek in advance. The Han tribe recently discovered a very promising location. The land there is fertile, the terrain is flat, water sources are abundant, and there is plenty of good land suitable for growing crops. As long as we put in the effort to cultivate it, it could support 100 tribes as large as our Han tribe without any problem. If your chieftain can bring warriors to assist, I am willing to share this land with you. Of course, if you don't want this land, that's fine too. Our Han tribe has other things to offer as rewards. As long as they are willing to face our common enemy, the warriors of the Han tribe are ready to take the lead and charge at the forefront of the battle. Just convey this to your chieftain. You passionately painted a grand vision for them, speaking with immense confidence. Is there really fertile land? Of course there is. In this day and age, any piece of land you find is bound to be fertile, completely untouched and undeveloped. But if you want it, the land isn't going anywhere. You'll have to relocate there. And when it comes to developing the land, you'll still have to do the work yourselves. In essence, it's just a way to lure them over to labor. Is what the Han chieftain said true? Are there really such good things as you described? The men were clearly moved by your impassioned and righteous speech. To put it bluntly, they were enticed by the grand vision he painted. Of course, it's true. A chieftain of a tribe with thousands of people possesses countless treasures. Would he deceive you over such trivial matters? Just relay what I've said, and I guarantee I will keep my word. You assured them with a nonchalant expression. Then we'll go back and gather our people. We hope the Han chieftain can send someone to escort us. Otherwise, it might be too late. That's no problem. You nodded, turned around, and shouted, Cavalry! Chief Rider Chai Duo, where are you? Quickly select some of your cavalry. Find 2 warriors from their tribe, each with 2 horses, and escort them back to their tribe to gather reinforcements. Chai Duo, hearing your call, hurried over from the side. He brushed aside his black battle armor, knelt on one knee, and clasped his fists. Your subordinate obeys the command. All right, go pick the men. Tell the warriors to stay safe and return quickly. You waved your hand, signaling him to select the men. The men from the Cha tribe and Fidor tribe quickly followed him. Before long, the group set off on horseback. To be fair, their tribes were not particularly close to Hanyang City, at least several days' journey away. But traveling on foot, one could cover at most 20 to 30 kilometers a day. On horseback, however, a day's journey could be completed in just an hour. Even reaching the farthest tribe would take no more than a day. So, the process of gathering reinforcements would be quite fast. It was expected that a large number of warriors would arrive soon. With these arrangements made, you also sent a message to the Feiying unit in Hanyang City, instructing them to use giant eagles to airlift the 3 people from the Xianxia tribe out. Then, you similarly dispatched cavalry to escort them back to gather reinforcements, once again painting the same grand vision for them. Meanwhile, on your end, you were busy making urgent arrangements to gather reinforcements from the tribes. Shu De led his sword and shield soldiers and archers, dispersing into the wilderness. Operating in small squads of 12, they roamed the forests to the northwest and southwest, gathering up the scattered remnants of troops. Then they brought them back to you, where you reasoned with them, appealed to their emotions, painted a grand vision of the future, and dispatched cavalry to escort them back to deliver the message. By the 10th day of the first month, it should have been the day for the Han tribe to hold their trading market. But due to the enemy siege, the market couldn't open. Nevertheless, the tribes that had come to trade arrived as scheduled, only to be met with enemy attacks. Fortunately, the elite warriors of the Han tribe were waiting in the forests to assist, managing to rescue a few individuals from each tribe. These survivors were then sent back to their tribes to call for reinforcements. The speed of the cavalry was swift, and unlike carts, they weren't picky about the roads. These messengers deliberately took small, hidden paths so they moved quickly, returning to their tribes on the very day they set out. The chieftains of each tribe promptly received this less-than-welcome news. The sky was pitch black, with 2 full moons hanging brightly overhead. At the Cha tribe's settlement, the chieftain, nearly 30 years old, sat before a bonfire, holding a bowl of white rice, staring in astonishment at the 2 men before him. One was the envoy he had previously sent to the market to procure goods, and the other was a Han tribe cavalryman clad in red robes and black armor, though he had once been a member of the Cha tribe. What did you say? Hanyang City is besieged by over 1,000 enemies? And those enemies have captured our tribesmen. Yes, that's why the Han tribe's chieftain sent us back to deliver the message. He hopes you will lead our warriors to provide support and has promised rewards for sending aid. The shorter man immediately repeated everything he had been told, word for word. The Cha chieftain listened with a furrowed brow, then turned his gaze to the Han tribe cavalryman. Chieftain, our Han leader said exactly that. I can vouch for it. The cavalryman quickly understood the chieftain's unspoken question and spoke up to confirm. Let me think this through carefully, the Cha chieftain murmured, falling silent. This matter was far from as simple as the 2 soldiers made it sound. Their tribesmen had been captured, true, but how many were there? No more than 10. For the Cha tribe, with a total population of over 400, this was hardly significant. Couldn't I just consider those 10 people lost? Why must I mobilize the entire tribe to help you fight a war? Moreover, the benefits they mentioned, a fertile piece of land for farming, capable of sustaining tens of thousands, how would that even work? To claim that land, the entire tribe would have to relocate. It wasn't as simple as just saying the words. But they did say that if we weren't willing to move, they would offer other forms of compensation. Yet what exactly would they give and how much? They hadn't specified. It was nothing but an empty promise. But what if we didn't go? According to the news, Hanyang City hadn't fallen yet. It was merely blockaded. And as the cavalryman disclosed, the city still had ample grain and livestock, so food wasn't an issue. If it came to a war of attrition, who would outlast whom remained uncertain? So here was the problem. If the Han tribe survived this crisis and recovered, would they seek revenge against the tribes that hadn't sent help? After all, the Han tribe's population was far more than just 1,000. Swallowing up a small tribe like ours would be effortless for them. There was another, even more critical issue. If the Han tribe were defeated, they would face certain annihilation. Where would we go then to buy salt? Put another way, if the Han tribe emerged victorious, afterwards they won't come to fight for them. It means their relationship has broken down. They'll stop trading with them in the future. Then they still won't get the white-eyed treatment. This situation is very likely to happen. After all, when I needed help, I promised to avenge you, but you didn't come to assist. Then why should I still sell you anything? Putting myself in their shoes, if I were the leader of the Han tribe, I'd probably do the same. After thinking for a long time, Xianxia sighed. If he didn't send troops, no matter the outcome, he wouldn't be able to accept it. So he had no choice but to send troops. He was forced into it. The 2 soldiers finished the food in their bowls and stared quietly at Xianxia, hoping for his reply. After all, their tribesmen were still waiting to be rescued. Our Cha tribe and the Han tribe are friends. Now that the enemy has surrounded Hanyang City and captured our people, they are our common enemy. Since they are the enemy, there's nothing more to say. We will definitely send troops. Gather the tribesmen immediately. I'll select 120 men. We'll set off at dawn tomorrow. Xianxia turned around, meeting their eager gazes, a sense of determination in his heart. Said loudly, and so, the warriors chosen by the Cha tribe that very night 100 men and 20 women. A total of 120 people were gathered, ready to depart early tomorrow morning. During this night, most other tribes who received the news did the same. Those who could become chiefs, elders, or the Wu leaders were not fools. All were the wise ones of the tribe. Their thoughts were actually similar to Chief Cha's. They too were compelled by circumstances. On the second day of the next month, dozens of tribes that had traded with the Han tribe all dispatched warriors. Many, like the Pointed Horn tribe, whose total population was already nearly 600 people, this time they directly sent out 150 people. This represented most of the tribe's fighting force. Other tribes also sent a considerable number of people. The larger ones sent 100, the smaller ones 40 or 50 people. There were also some small tribes whose total population was less than 100, almost the entire tribe mobilized. There were also some small tribes of 50 or 60 people, they even carried their nursing babies. It looked exactly like a relocation. For these small tribes, perhaps this was an opportunity. The Han tribe had discovered another excellent place, and agreed to share it with them. They certainly didn't dare to expect mere sharing. But perhaps they could directly join the Han tribe. In this way, all those good things, wouldn't they still be given to them for free? Large numbers of warriors were gathering towards your location. However, some tribes were relatively close, and arrived at the gathering point by the evening of the day after their march began. However, looking at the dense crowd, totem warriors blocking the city gates, you didn't directly order an attack. The cannibals' warriors, in order to obtain food, often sent out small teams to hunt in the surrounding mountains and forests. You glanced at the still not-so-numerous warriors, you had a flash of inspiration, and immediately told them about a bounty mission. Capture an enemy, bring them to you and receive 2 large bowls of reward. The warriors who had arrived early were stunned by this. They hadn't expected such a good thing to exist. So these people immediately split up and went out, preparing to hunt down these enemies who had rashly entered the mountains. In the mountains and forests surrounding Hanyang City, a team of 40 cannibal totem warriors was moving quietly. They were tracking the footprints of a group of animals. On the other side, a dozen or so Han tribe warriors riding oxen were advancing towards a valley. They deliberately went to an area near Hanyang City and circled around, precisely to lure these small hunting parties entering the mountains into an ambush. The 2 groups of warriors walked further and further, gradually delving deeper into the mountains, and at the same time, getting closer and closer to the ambush site. At the ambush site in the mountain cove, nearly 200 warriors were ambushed in the vicinity. Some were hidden in trees, others were concealed in bushes, and there were some lying prone, lying motionless in waist-high grass. Among these 200 people were Han tribe warriors in red robes and black armor, and warriors from other tribes without leaf camouflage suits. Before these people set out, you specifically instructed them to try their best to capture enemies alive. The 2 opposing groups, one following the other, soon entered the ambush circle. The dozen or so Han tribe warriors riding oxen dismounted one after another, then hid their oxen. They themselves also found their hiding places, silently lay on the ground, waiting for the enemy to walk into the trap. A team of 40 totem warriors, following the footprints of the cattle herd, soon appeared in the mountain cove. But the originally clean footprints of the cattle herd suddenly became messy here. Around the cattle footprints, some human footprints suddenly appeared. This made the leading captain alert. Had others been in close contact with these cattle? But looking at these footprints, they didn't seem like human footprints. Because the Han tribe's warriors all wore warriors' military boots. The soles were all carved with anti-slip patterns from hardwood. Except for different sizes, they all looked the same. Such footprints. The cannibals had naturally never seen them before, so they couldn't be sure if they were human. But before they could figure it out, more than 100 people suddenly appeared around them, shouting loudly and surrounding them. The cannibal warriors were greatly alarmed. The people before them were indeed dressed somewhat strangely. Red robes, red trousers, and black armor, covering all vital parts of their bodies. Only their faces were exposed. The weapons they held were also very refined, completely different from the crude spears and clubs in their hands. They were not on the same level at all. However, they were also battle-hardened warriors, and their ability to adapt in the field was excellent. The 40 men quickly formed a circle back to back. Those holding wooden shields stood on the outermost perimeter, one hand holding a shield, the other hand holding a long spear high, resting it on the shield. The others without shields also raised their crude spears high, pointing over the heads of the outermost shield soldiers. The warriors advanced step by step, constantly tightening the encirclement. The Han tribe's sword and shield soldiers drew their long swords, one hand holding a shield and the other holding a gleaming saber. With every step, they struck their shields with their sabers. The two sides had not yet engaged in battle, but this orderly display of military might was enough to make the cannibal totem warriors break out in a cold sweat. Some nervously wiped their bodies, smudging the white, ferocious totems on their skin. The encirclement grew tighter and tighter. Everyone stopped. The shouts they were uttering also in an instant stopped. The scene instantly became silent and oppressive, tensing everyone's nerves. The cannibal totem warriors were also somewhat bewildered. They didn't understand what these strangely dressed warriors, who seemed to have descended from the heavens, were planning to do. Why had they suddenly surrounded them? And now that they were surrounded, why weren't they attacking? And just at this moment, a clear sound suddenly rang out from the mountain, a loud whistle, echoing continuously through the valley. Immediately after, from the opposite direction of where the cannibal warriors had come, a rumbling sound was heard, like rolling thunder, moving from far to near, with incredible speed. All the totem warriors looked in that direction. The scene they witnessed next would be unforgettable for the rest of their lives. The cannibal totem warriors were casually moving through the mountain forest, their minds full of thoughts of hunting and plunder. Who could have expected that, in an instant, a group of strangely dressed warriors would surround them completely like ghosts? Yet these encirclers merely stood there silently, neither attacking nor speaking. An eerie silence permeated the air. The cannibal warriors looked at each other, completely bewildered, feeling a chill in their hearts, secretly wondering what these people were up to. Just as everyone was filled with confusion, suddenly, from the mountain, a sharp whistle rang out. Immediately after, a dull rumbling sound came from afar, getting closer and closer. They saw 38 magnificent horses, red and black, galloping like the wind and lightning, each one with taut muscles, its four hooves raising wind. The warriors on horseback wore red robes and black armor, standing tall and straight, like war gods descending. With one hand, they firmly grasped the reins. With the other, they held a 4-meter-long banner spear horizontally. The spear tips gleamed with a chilling light, as if capable of instantly tearing through anything in their path. The warriors in the encirclement, after hearing the command for the two flanks to retreat, moved quickly and orderly, like well-trained machines, neatly opening up a passage. Seeing this, the cavalry, immediately like arrows released from a bow, charged towards the cannibals. The cannibals had already fallen into a predicament of being attacked from front and back. They had intended to form a circular formation to resist stubbornly, hoping to at least hold out for a while. But with this cavalry charge, their formation instantly collapsed. The warriors scattered in terror, completely lost all order, like headless flies. The cavalry mercilessly charged into the encirclement. Sharp lances directly pierced through the bodies of some cannibal warriors. Those warriors who were stabbed hung limply like rag dolls on the spear shafts, dragged far away by the horses, and breathed their last on the spot. Blood spread out on the grass, a horrifying sight. The warriors in the outer encirclement saw the enemy army in disarray. How could they miss this excellent opportunity? Nearly 200 warriors, like fierce tigers descending from a mountain, with an unstoppable momentum, pounced towards the more than 30 remaining enemy soldiers. The warriors of the Han tribe were all elite, carefully selected from over 4,000 people. Their equipment was even more superior. Facing the enemy, they showed no fear. In a single clash, they sent the enemy sprawling, men and horses overturned. Immediately after, they rushed forward and unleashed a furious barrage of attacks, directly smashing the enemies unconscious to the ground. The sword and shield soldiers were even more valiant. They reacted swiftly, quick-eyed and quick-handed. They precisely blocked the enemy's incoming bone spears with their shields. Then, with a swing of their long sabers with a crunch, they chopped the bone spears into 2 pieces. Subsequently, they exerted force with their feet, kicking the enemies to the ground. The nearby reinforcements were not to be outdone. They swung their big clubs and smashed them fiercely towards the enemies' heads. With a thud, the enemies were instantly smashed to the ground, paralyzed. The spearmen of the Han tribe, when facing the enemy's long spear soldiers, their advantage was fully displayed. Their spears were longer, able to attack the enemy first. However, this time you requested to capture them alive. So the spearmen had all undergone special training. They skillfully used their spear shafts to parry the enemy's long spears. Taking advantage of the enemy's opening, they fiercely whipped them with the spear shaft. With a crack, the enemies were knocked to the ground. Before the enemies could recover, the nearby reinforcements immediately rushed forward. With many hands, they used ropes to bind the enemies tightly and securely. The engineers, even without bows and arrows, showed no fear. They held short clubs in their left hands and military shovels in their right hands, as if they held invincible divine weapons. When the enemy's long spears thrust towards them, they calmly and steadily parried them with their wooden clubs. Then, with a fierce swing of the military shovel in their right hand, they chopped off the enemy's weapons. Immediately after, they quickly moved in close and unleashed a flurry of blows on the enemies. Every punch landed solidly, their combat power surged. The leader of the cannibals was an extremely formidable character. His strength was astonishing, and his movements were exceptionally agile. In the chaos, he snatched a wooden club and began to swing it wildly. The wooden club whistled through the air in his hands. No one around could get close to him. Orton's military commander, Hu Montsong, saw this scene. His brows furrowed tightly into a frown. He thought, this won't do. He absolutely cannot be allowed to continue his arrogance. So, without hesitation, he took up his shield and launched a side charge. Like an enraged bull with overwhelming force, he directly sent the enemy leader flying. While the opponent was still landing and hadn't regained their footing, Hu Montsong delivered a backhand slash. A crunch was heard, and half of the enemy's arm flew high into the air. Blood spurted out from the severed arm like a fountain. Hu Montsong, holding his blood-stained waist saber, shouted loudly, "This man is the enemy leader. Hack him to death." Upon hearing this, a dozen or so sword and shield soldiers immediately howled like hungry wolves and charged forward. For a moment, saber glints flashed. With several whooshes and thuds, the valiant cannibal leader was hacked to pieces by the chaotic assault. This bloody scene made the other enemies and those ragtag reinforcements turn pale as paper with fright. Their legs went weak, trembling like chaff, and they were all easily captured by the warriors of the Han tribe. In this battle, the Han tribe achieved a complete victory. The entire enemy squad numbered 42 people. Of these, 5 were killed. 37 were captured alive. And our side suffered no casualties. This was simply a perfect victory. In the following days, the Han tribe's allied forces were like a group of fierce hunters in the mountains, successfully ambushing the enemy multiple times. Each victory further boosted the morale of the warriors. Some even excitedly shouted the slogan of a decisive battle at Hanyang City. However, you remained exceptionally calm. You knew it wasn't time for a decisive battle yet. The allied forces needed to grow in number, and at the same time you had to wait for the enemy to react. Only by understanding their true strength could they be taken down in one fell swoop. The enemy wasn't foolish either. They soon discovered that the hunting parties they sent out had gone missing. This was a problem. Without food, everyone began to starve. There was no alternative. They could only send more people into the mountains. Each squad consisted of 100 people, and they also brought several giant units. They thought this way they would surely get some harvest and also look for the missing people. But they never expected that after days of continuous fighting, you had already captured over 300 enemies and killed dozens more. As a result, only 800 enemy soldiers remained outside Hanyang City. Their strength was greatly weakened. On the morning of April 8th, early summer, as the sun had just begun to cast its light upon the earth, a cavalryman rushed up to you, loudly reporting that 2 enemy 100-man teams had taken the bait. They were advancing along the right flank you had set up. They were expected to reach the encirclement before noon. After you heard this, you immediately asked, how many giant units do these 2 teams have? The cavalryman replied, the team heading directly south has 6, and the other team heading southwest has 5. You pondered for a moment, then told the cavalryman, go back and tell Rat Drummer that this time, since the allied forces are numerous, let them engage in close combat. Tell our sapper commander not to participate in the advance, but to attack the enemy's giant units from a distance with lobbed shots. Strive to kill these monsters first to avoid heavy casualties. Also, tell Rat Drummer that in this battle with the giant units participating, to prevent the battle from getting out of control, they can forego taking prisoners this time, to ensure their own safety above all else. If they are difficult to capture, kill them directly. The cavalryman, having received the order, immediately mounted his horse and rode off without delay. You then went to inspect the camp. The situation in the camp caused you some concern. Over 300 prisoners were held there. All of them had been starving for several days. One by one, they lay sprawled on the ground, listless. Despair showed in their eyes. Besides the prisoners, there were also dozens of wounded. Most of them were reinforcements from other tribes. The Han tribe only had 3 wounded. There were also many women and children in the camp. Some were small tribes who, with their entire families, had been seeking refuge in Hanyang City. Others were female warriors recruited from other tribes. You looked at these people, thinking that they couldn't be left idle. They needed to be put to some use. Therefore, you had these women temporarily stay in the camp to handle some tasks like overseeing prisoners, looking after children, and cooking as logistical support. By noon, the prearranged ambush position finally engaged the enemy. A major battle was imminent. The selection of the ambush site was very particular. Most were chosen in small open areas without trees, specifically to prevent those giants from climbing trees. If they were to climb trees, their attacking power would double. They would be much harder to deal with then. The tactics were still similar to before. After the enemy entered the circle, the entrance would first be sealed off. However, this time there was a slight difference. Before the cavalry charged, there would first be a wave of long-range covering fire. The archers were already prepared and waiting in formation. They stood at a distance, their gazes firm, aiming at the enemy's giant units, and unleashed their arrows. Some of the giants were hit by 7 or 8 arrows and died on the spot. Others were hit by 1 or 2 arrows and were still desperately struggling to break through. When the giants charged to a distance from the encirclement of 60 meters, the sword and shield soldiers had already quickly formed a shield wall. Behind the shield wall were rows of spearmen. They rested their sharp, long spears on their shields, like a jungle of steel, ensuring no enemy could break out of the encirclement. Further back were countless allied tribal reinforcements. Each of them held 3 or 4 long spears, their eyes fixed on the charging giants. At the command of Han tribe's commander Xiaojiang, they neatly threw several rounds of javelins. For a moment, javelins rained down like pillars. Several of the man-eating creatures didn't even reach the shield wall before being riddled with dense spears, turning them into hedgehogs, and were completely dead. After eliminating the giants, the subsequent battle was similar to the pattern of the past few days. The cavalry charged first, responsible for breaking the enemy formation. They swept into the enemy ranks like a whirlwind, completely disrupting the enemy's formation. The spearmen and shield-bearers then charged in amidst the chaos. They cooperated tacitly, one attacking, one defending, forcing the enemy to retreat step by step. The 2 battles, from start to finish, surprisingly were over in less than half an hour. After all, this was the Han tribe's allied army of 400 to 500 people fighting against their 100. From weapons to tactics to the battlefield, the advantage was entirely with the allied army. This victory was practically a sure thing. After the battle ended, the army began to systematically clear the battlefield. Some people were responsible for escorting the captured prisoners back to the camp. Others were dispersed to scout for enemy intelligence. When the group escorted the prisoners back to the camp, it was already evening. Although there weren't many prisoners in this battle, there were still about 120 people. After these few battles, the enemy's remaining forces were only 600 people outside Hanyang City, and your allied army had over 2,000. Each larger tribe, on average 170 to 180 tribes were dispatched, amounted to over 1,700 people. Plus a few smaller tribes that came to join them, the total number already exceeded 2,000. You looked at the moon in the sky, silently counting the days in your heart. You knew that in a little over a week, Hanyang City's first season rice harvest for this year would be due. The busy farming season wouldn't wait. You made a decisive decision, determining that tomorrow would be the time for the decisive battle. That night, you immediately sent a message via carrier pigeon, informing the city's defenders to cooperate with you to launch a general attack tomorrow and completely eliminate these invading enemies. You also told them in detail the specific plan for tomorrow's decisive battle. The next morning, you left about 300 people to guard the camp and to escort about 430 prisoners. Then, you led a force of over 1,900 people, majestically marching towards Hanyang City. Among them were 1,800 allied troops and over 100 elite warriors from the Han tribe. The group began marching at dawn, continuing until around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Just as they were about to exit the mountain forest, you ordered the army to halt. You knew everyone was tired and needed to eat something to replenish their strength. So the warriors successively took out the dry rations they had prepared that morning, which included rice and roasted meat. Everyone ate ravenously. After resting for an hour at 5 p.m., the army from the southwest and southeast directions burst out of the mountain forest like two sharp blades. Forming a semi-encirclement, they trapped the enemy on the west side of Hanyang City. The defenders on Hanyang City walls, seeing their leader arriving with a large force from afar, immediately cheered with joy. The enemy had besieged the city for over 10 days, and they had been hoping for reinforcements every day. Now that the leader had finally appeared with the allied army, everyone was overjoyed. Meanwhile, the enemies outside Hanyang City, seeing so many people emerge from the forest, were instantly dumbfounded. They might only now be realizing why those warriors who went hunting in the mountains never returned. Even the 200 people sent to search yesterday did not come back. Seeing so many people, there's no need to think about this matter anymore. It must be these people who did it. But they still couldn't understand why these people would be hostile towards them. Just as the enemies looked bewildered, the army opposite them opened a path. Slowly walking out from behind were two Kongshao elephants. Idle on them sat a man wearing a golden crown. It's him, it's that person. The very two that were lost in the dark forest the autumn before last. At that time, our squad was defeated, only 3 of us managed to escape. Those 2 elephants were also lost. We didn't expect them to be captured by that person. A cannibal warrior who had once attacked countless people shouted loudly from the crowd. He still had a round scar on his shoulder. That was from when he was hit by your arrow then. It's just that at that time your swordsman still had arrowheads. So the injury was not severe. That's how he managed to escape with his injury. He even brought back the heavy sword he had on him to the tribe. That's how the subsequent events unfolded. His shouts didn't cause much of a reaction. No matter who this person in front of them was, to the cannibals he was their enemy. The cannibals reacted quickly. When they saw so many enemies appear, immediately, a person who seemed to be the leader called for people towards the east gate and north gate. All the warriors blocking the 4 city gates were gathered together to form a battle array outside the west gate, ready to face the enemy. Seeing their actions, they also did not go to do anything, thinking to themselves that it would save trouble later if they weren't too scattered, making them hard to catch. When the remaining 600-plus totem warriors and 15 or 16 giant reinforcements had all gathered at the west gate, behind them, the east gate suddenly rapidly saw 1,500 people charge out from inside. Han tribe members, approximately. There were men and women all carrying a variety of weapons. There were early bronze spears from the Han tribe, also copper shovels and iron wires, even axes and hoes, even wooden clubs. After more than 1,000 people rushed out of the east gate, they immediately split into 2 groups, flanking from the north and south, blocking all the enemies in front of the west gate. This instantly scared that group of enemies speechless. They never would have imagined that there were still so many people in the city, although they had been besieging the city for several days. But they still didn't know how many were in the city. You say, if you had so many people, why didn't you attack earlier? You insisted on staying inside the city and not coming out. Now look, there were already so many people outside, and you came out to join the fun. Isn't this forcing them onto a path of no return? At this moment, those totem warriors felt like crying. Even their retreat path was outflanked. There was absolutely no way out. Just then, directly in front of the Allied forces facing the Western Ocean, Sima Shuya rode on horseback, enduringly waving the huge military flag in their hands. The bright red military flag fluttered in the wind. This was the signal for a general attack issued to the defenders of Hanyang City. The war drums on the city tower boomed. With a clattering sound, many sounds suddenly appeared from the crenellations of the west city wall. There were early Han tribe female archers there, and some archers trained later. The total number was no less than 100 people. There were also a large number of ordinary tribesmen. Even adult tribesmen from the Snake tribe also appeared on the city wall. You ordered the nearby Shoya. Changed to a different flag-waving motion. The drumming on the west city wall also immediately stopped. The next moment, hundreds of arrows rained down like raindrops, flew directly towards the dozen-plus giant beasts below the city wall. On these arrowheads, all for the anesthetic demons collected from the lone tribe. It was precisely to kill with one blow. First killed these giant-mouthed creatures with astonishing combat power. The sound of feces splashing into flesh rang out. A dozen or so giant beasts quickly fell, half of them The remaining few wild ones hurriedly fled outwards. They couldn't reach the people on the city wall. They had tried several times over the past few days, so they could only flee outwards. But outside was an encirclement of around 2,000 people. With the arrows from this side, shot out continuously, those man-eating creatures were wiped out in the blink of an eye, completely. This suddenly, the remaining totem warriors became even more panicked. They began to retreat frequently. Soon they retreated to the moat outside the west gate, with no way back. However, there were also some more timid warriors who directly jumped into the river to escape, hoping to swim along the moat and out of the encirclement. But just at this moment, the archers on the city wall once again unleashed their power. They shot directly down into the moat. Those enemies trying to escape were instantly shot dead on the spot. The other tribesmen who didn't have bows and arrows also took the stones they had saved over the past few days and threw them down all at once, smashing directly into the enemy crowd below the west city wall. Under this widespread attack, like heavenly maidens scattering flowers, many in the enemy crowd were instantly struck. It wasn't that they didn't want to dodge, but rather, they were surrounded by their own people, so crowded that there was nowhere to flee. However, under the pushing and shoving of even more people, the crowd was forced to start moving forward, away from the range of the stones thrown from the city wall. However, in doing so, it also happened to be exactly what you wanted. The enemy crowd's forward movement for the entrance of the west gate created space for deployment. The war drums boomed loudly once again. Amidst the stirring drumbeats, the drawbridge of the west gate was quickly lowered. Inside, 2 vermilion-lacquered red gates opened simultaneously, revealing the cavalry already neatly arranged inside. Seeing the city gates wide open, to be honest, those totem warriors originally still wanted to risk death and rush into the city. Perhaps this way there would still be a chance to live. But what they saw was the city gate was tightly blocked by many tall four-horned beasts. Solid. Then they saw your large flag on the west side wave. Someone seemed to have shouted something. The next moment, the cavalry commander next to you, under the leadership of Chai Duo, charged towards the enemy crowd. Each of the 38 warriors had 2 mounts, totaling 76 horses. They charged forward bravely, like a gust of strong wind. Simultaneously, over 100 riders also surged out from the entrance of the west gate. Among them, also swept along were over 200 unridden beasts that charged out with the army. The scene was simply like mountains collapsing and the earth rending. The enemies had never seen such a spectacle. They were instantly scared shitless. Over 600 enemies scattered and ran in a panic. Their originally neat formation was completely messed up in the blink of an eye. You seized the opportunity, drew your long sword, and initiated a charge. Over 3,000 Han tribe allied forces immediately charged up like tigers descending from the mountain. They charged forward, a fierce assault, routing the enemies completely. In this fierce battle, everyone displayed their unique skills. Shuda tightly gripped his straight-bladed saber with both hands. His left hand also held the scabbard, using it as a club. Blocking left and attacking right, the enemies couldn't get close to him at all. Xue Tu, meanwhile, wielded a black long staff. Each strike carried a whooshing sound. If an enemy took a blow from the staff, they either died or were injured. Dali held iron shears. With one strike, he could smash an enemy's shield to smithereens. Du Air, holding an iron wire, charged left and right through the enemy crowd. No one could get close to him even a bit. Although responsible for carrying the flag and giving orders, he didn't directly participate in the battle. But he also had his own exclusive weapon, always ready to contribute to the battle. The battle ended. The Han tribe achieved a great victory. In this battle, not only were many enemies killed, but also 479 captives were taken. In contrast, the Allied army's casualties were very small. Only 3 people died. You certainly didn't plan to easily let these captives go. He had the captives locked up, thinking of starving them for a few days first to really drain their strength, to let them know the Han tribe is not to be trifled with after winning the battle. A celebration is naturally in order following this. You warmly invited the allied forces of various tribes to enter Hanyang City and celebrate. Everyone came to the city square upon seeing the Han tribe's way of life. Everyone was like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden. All were stunned into silence. Everything they saw seemed miraculous. Many children, acting grown-up, ran through the streets and alleys busily helping their adults move tables and benches. Following behind these children were some fluffy little puppies. Those were the offspring of the dozens of sheepdogs Ling Feng brought. They were all only 1 or 2 months old now, yelping and yipping, Following behind the children, some slightly older children also led the foreign warriors to the wells at various alley entrances to draw water and wash up. These foreign warriors were amazed by this method of providing water. The well found it both ingenious and magical. They never expected that digging a deep pit on flat ground would yield water. It certainly broadened their horizons. After washing up some foreign warriors within the permitted areas, went around visiting places. When they met former members of their own tribe, they would also be invited into homes to take a look. A warrior from the Gu tribe saw his younger sister, who had been married into the Han tribe. Both were quite happy after recognizing each other, so he was invited into her home as a guest. This was an ordinary household. The male head of the household was a soldier in the military camp. There was only one woman, however. Two people occupying one house was a bit wasteful, so there were two other women in this household, both rescued from the fire tribe. The Gu tribe warrior, led by his sister, entered the courtyard. What they saw was a 4-year-old boy with a small top knot on his head, wearing an open front linen vest and a pair of oddly cut linen shorts, squatting in the courtyard, playing with a puppy. The child saw a strange man enter but wasn't afraid, but also didn't go forward to greet him, holding the puppy in his arms. He stood there, watching the stranger. The Hu tribe warrior smiled at the child, curiously glancing at the strange clothes he was wearing, then followed his sister into the house. In the central living room kitchen, a fire tribe woman was stoking the fire under the stove. Inside the large iron pot above, a continuous aroma of rice wafted out. Beside the kitchen stove, a neat stack of small firewood was piled up. On the other side were 2 large jars with wooden lids. Upon opening, one contained clear water, the other was filled with somewhat yellowed scrolls. There was no one in his sister's room on the west side. On the large Kong bed at that moment, a small, low-legged steel table was placed. On the table were a ceramic teapot, white porcelain teacups, and a small bronze oil lamp burning oil, emitting a dim light. The wooden lattice window on the south wall was currently closed, but it made no difference from being open. No window paper had been pasted on it, nor animal hide. One could directly see outside. The evening breeze from outside could also blow directly into the room. Inside the window was a flying shuttle loom. 1.5 meters wide. On it was a roll of undyed raw wool that hadn't been completely woven. The strange object immediately made the Hu tribe warrior greatly curious. After his sister's demonstration and explanation, the man then understood the use of this object. The woman then mentioned that this object was created by their leader, which made the man even more astonished. Seeing him as a divine being, he never expected the Han tribe's leader to be not only formidable in battle, but also so versatile and talented, able to create such a divine artifact. Other parts of the Han tribe were also experiencing similar events. Some were allowed to visit the Han tribe's timber processing factory, watching the huge windmill flapping in the wind, automatically rotating with complex wooden gears, finally controlling the saw blade of one machine, moving up and down in an alternating fashion, quickly sawed a log into a wooden door, which greatly astonished people. Some were also invited to visit the Han tribe's breeding farm. Sheep, antelope, and various other animals were all present. Even the 100 saiga antelopes bought last year, 80 of the females had now bred their first batch of offspring. Each gave birth to 2 or 3 small antelopes. The size of the Han tribe's antelope herd had also grown from 100 to over 300. In addition, you weren't idle either. You gathered several tribal leaders to follow you, and together, you ascended the city walls of Hanyang City. From the height, you could take in the entire tribal settlement's scenery. By then, dusk was falling. On the city walls, warriors were already lighting torches and standing guard. This filled the leaders of the various tribes with envy. These people stepped onto it, filled with awe, the city wall that wasn't particularly grand. After all, it was originally only over 7 meters tall, incomparable to many ancient city passes. However, even just this was enough to fill them with immense wonder. The square urban area was divided into a 9-square grid by 4 main streets arranged in a grid pattern. Wisps of cooking smoke rose within the city. Thousands of people also wandered the streets. The square in the city center was the liveliest place. Countless people were preparing a grand celebration feast there. Looking further outside the city, outside the east gate were neat rice paddies. In the distance, it was divided by a small river. The dirt road in front of the gate led directly to a wooden bridge. You are worthy of extending into the distance. You saw that everyone had observed for a while. Then began to ask everyone for their opinions on the Han tribe. Before, they had only visited the market a few times. Seeing this city from the outside, they initially didn't understand why the Han leader made his people spend time and effort building such a thing. It wasn't until they personally ascended the city walls that they realized the Han leader's long-term vision. Have such high-level skills. Could indeed block any enemy attack. Although it took a long time and required much manpower, it could be passed down for generations, ensuring their people could safely recuperate and thrive. It was indeed worth it. The leader of the Pointed Horn tribe was the first to speak, saying, "That's right. When the enemy army besieged the city, I was inside Hanyang City. I also received permission from the elders of the Han tribe to ascend the city walls and observe the battle. The giant monsters among the enemies were incredibly strong, and their leaps were astonishing. I was originally worried that those monsters would jump onto the city walls, but I didn't expect those monsters couldn't even reach the shortest wugo. In the end, they could only unwillingly fall down. Moreover, they were killed on the spot by the warriors on the city walls. Now, whenever they think of these things, my heart was filled with a wave of regret. Our snake tribe was so close to Hanyang City. If I could have joined the Han tribe earlier, and lived in such a fortified city, we would not have suffered the calamity of tribal annihilation. That day, the enemy army suddenly arrived at our tribe. We didn't even have the ability to resist. Fortunately, some tribesmen fought to the death to resist, which allowed most of the women and children to escape. Otherwise, we would probably have truly been wiped out. These days, I have been living in the city. I've also come to understand the Han tribe better. It turns out that our tribesmen who joined the Han tribe still have the same surnames as their original tribes, forming their own lineage. Although everyone is a member of the same tribe, they have also preserved their original tribal lineage. So it's not like they have disappeared completely. It's actually better for everyone to live together. More people mean greater strength, right? More things can be done, and living conditions can also be better. Therefore, I have decided. I want to bring the remaining 200+ tribesmen to join the Han tribe and become the snake clan of the Han tribe. This will allow my people to live better lives. At the very least, they won't have to live in constant fear every day, afraid that enemies might suddenly arrive one day. I hope Chief Han will definitely agree to your request. The snake tribe leader said to everyone with emotion, I naturally welcome you if you are willing to join the Han tribe. Just as you said, there is strength in numbers. The more people there are, the more can be accomplished. I guarantee that under my leadership, my tribesmen will definitely live better lives. Now, as the leader of the Han tribe, I officially welcome your joining. You solemnly accepted the snake tribe leader's earnest pledge. Thank you, leader. From now on, my tribesmen are your tribesmen. Anything we are capable of doing, leader, just give the command. Since we have joined the Han tribe, it is only right that we contribute our part to the Han tribe. Upon hearing your solemn acceptance, the snake leader quickly bowed and said to you. This whole spectacle simply made the leaders of the other tribes gape in astonishment. What's going on? Didn't we agree to discuss the distribution of rewards? One of you suddenly pledges allegiance, and the other calmly accepts. What exactly does this mean? But just as they were pondering in confusion, you suddenly spoke. You scanned the leaders, and with a serious expression, said, Leaders, you and our Han tribe have fought side by side for many days. I wonder if you've noticed anything unusual about these enemies. Unusual characteristics? Their numbers? A tribal leader said uncertainly. Precisely. These enemies number over 1,200, and all of them are adult males. Such a large fighting force, even our Han tribe, with a population already exceeding 4,000, cannot muster. Just think how powerful this enemy tribe truly is. Moreover, their current range of activity has already reached this far. Lan Bao will no longer be responsible for it. Who knows how many more people they truly have. This time, all tribes suffered losses. The snake tribe suffered the greatest losses. They don't even have homes anymore. They can only join the Han tribe to seek refuge. But what if the enemy returns next time? Who knows which tribe will suffer next? I was the one who gathered everyone for this battle. I also said earlier that I would provide rewards to everyone. However, they had already exchanged captives for White Rock, giving each of you a portion. When you all return, I will also give you some additional compensation. However, from now on, our Han tribe's market may no longer be held. You slowly revealed your long-planned scheme. The leaders, initially happy to hear there would still be rewards, were originally very pleased. But your next sentence immediately caused an uproar among them. Han leader, if you no longer hold markets in the future, where will we go to exchange for White Rock and other daily necessities? Exactly, Han leader. You absolutely cannot stop the market. Everyone, please quiet down. As I just said, the enemy we face is too powerful. Even our Han tribe now finds it difficult to repel the enemy alone. Fortunately, we still have strong city walls. Ensuring our own safety is still not an issue. But if we continue to hold markets in the future, then what if the enemy suddenly attacks? If we allow the enemy to rush into the city, then our Han tribe would likely also suffer disaster. What's more, the tribesmen from other tribes who come here to trade also cannot be guaranteed safety. That's why I decided to stop the market in the future. Hanyang City would also emerge from deep seclusion. Only one city gate will be opened each day to ensure the tribe's safety. Therefore, in the future, I might not be able to look after you all. I can only find ways to protect our own Han tribe members. What they originally thought was generous compensation turned out to be the last act of charity. They gained an advantage this time, but what about the future? From a long-term perspective, this was equivalent to cutting off their escape route. But the reason you gave was not wrong. For the safety of one's own tribesmen, there's nothing more to say. When danger is encountered, it's certainly paramount to protect one's own tribesmen first. Could they still expect to be protected first? But Han leader, your Han tribe cannot repel the enemy by yourselves. But we can if we join forces. As long as the enemy comes again next time, we just send troops over again. There's no need to directly stop urgent matters. What will we do later then? The robust leader of the Wu tribe said. What you said is one way, but this won't work every time. What if even more enemies come next time? What if next time we, the Han tribe, are all trapped inside the city? How could we still ask you to send troops for rescue? This time, our warriors happened to be outside the city and didn't directly run into the enemy. That's why we were able to find a way to notify you. But for next time, who can guarantee it will still be the same as this time? Also, for our Han tribe, making those goods isn't easy either. Normally, exchanging with you for some materials we can use is still somewhat manageable. But to ask you to send troops even once, the compensation required is too great. We can't ask you to come every time, can we? We ourselves can't afford that either. You argued, but if the enemy comes again, your Han tribe has a city that can block the enemy. But if those enemies can't do anything to you, they will definitely run to the surrounding areas and attack our tribes. The leader of the Zhu tribe said fearfully. You, however, shrugged your hands and said helplessly, then I don't have any good solutions either. I can only prioritize protecting my own clansmen. If your tribe is attacked and you are willing to offer compensation, our Han tribe can also send troops to help. Moreover, this condition also needs to be based on our Hanyang City not being under threat and being able to send out troops. Some leaders immediately rolled their eyes or simply frowned. Those words sounded nice. To ask the Han tribe to send troops, not to mention they couldn't offer any decent compensation even if they could, then waiting for them to send someone to the Han tribe to report, and for the Han tribe to then send troops for support. Perhaps the messenger wouldn't even have reached Hanyang City before their tribe was wiped out 8 times over. Isn't this a joke? First, they don't have horses or eagles to quickly transmit messages. Second, they don't have a city like the Han tribes that can hold out against attacks. What could they rely on to hold out until reinforcements arrived? So, these words you said were practically meaningless. The surrounding leaders immediately fell into deep thought. What should they do if the enemy came again? Just close their eyes and wait for death? Or move? But where could they move to? The fields they had painstakingly reclaimed, just abandon their lives like that? Abandon their ancestral dwelling place? Besides, even if they moved to another place, would there be no enemies there? And they would also lose the attack of the White Rock. Looking at the solid city walls beneath their feet, on this perilous land, perhaps only inside the city was truly safe. And recalling the Snake Tribe leader's decision just now, and that phrase you repeatedly mentioned, I can only prioritize protecting my own clansmen. So what followed was a very obvious choice. Was it taking a generous compensation, and from then on fending for themselves with life and death determined by fate? Or was it joining the Han tribe, freely obtaining various supplies, and gaining the right to reside in the city, and from then on becoming a clansman of the Han tribe, forever enjoying the city's protection? Moreover, just now, hearing the Snake Tribe leader say that the Han tribe would also give each joining tribe a surname. Although they would be clansmen of the Han tribe, they would also form their own lineage. In reality, their heritage would not disappear. It would just exist in a different way. Yet the benefits gained were indeed enormous. With such a comparison, some leaders immediately made a decision. Han leader, Arya tribe won't ask for any compensation this time. Our tribe doesn't have many people, and we also have no way to build such a city to protect ourselves. It's even more impossible to move to a distant, unknown place, and we also can't do without the Han tribe's various goods. Rather than waiting to be eliminated by enemies next time, it's better to directly join the Han tribe. After careful consideration, Xianxia was the first to choose to join the Han tribe. Of course, they are welcome. This way, our strength will also be greater. The stronger we are, the greater our chances of resisting enemies. Welcome to the Han tribe. Tomorrow, I will also send out people and horses and vehicles to help you move, so you can settle into Hanyang City as early as possible. This way, you can also live a peaceful life sooner. You directly nodded in agreement. Another tribe joined the Han tribe. The other chiefs began to look at each other. In their hearts, it was still difficult to decide. But after glancing at the city, the pedestrians on the streets, and the rows of houses with cooking smoke rising, someone quickly made up their mind. Hanyang City is only so big. The number of people it can accommodate is limited. Any later, even if they wanted to join the Han tribe, they might not have the chance. Next were the Zong tribe, the Shui tribe, and the One tribe. Having understood this, 3 chiefs immediately stepped forward and spoke in unison, stating their respective decisions to join the Han tribe. The 3 chiefs were simultaneously stunned for a moment. They didn't expect that others would stand up with them. What now? Hanyang City is only so big. They hoped their tribe wouldn't be rejected. The 3 were so unusual. Further strengthened their resolve to join the Han tribe. They quickly asked you to agree to let them move into Hanyang City and be accepted. Ha ha ha. Thank you, 3 chiefs, for your trust. Since you are all willing to join the Han tribe, I certainly welcome you very much. Don't worry, although Hanyang City doesn't have many empty spots, I will definitely find a way to arrange everything for all of you. After all, your tribesmen will also be my tribesmen from now on. I will naturally protect them with all my might. Moreover, after this incident, in order to better protect the safety of the Han tribe, I have decided to select a group of elite warriors from the new tribesmen to expand the Han tribe's army. Once selected, they will receive the same powerful equipment as the Han tribe warriors. And you, the former chiefs, will also specially receive a unique custom-made weapon. You cheerfully smiled at the 3. 3 more people made their decision. Also, Hanyang City is only so big. In addition to your promises to select warriors to expand the army and get that awesome equipment, chiefs can also get custom-made weapons. With this series of incentives, more chiefs also began to be unable to hold back. Chief Han, our tiger tribe is also willing to join. Can you please make a powerful weapon for me too? The chief of the tiger tribe was also a young man in his 20s, feeling about the same age as Xianxia. During this battle, he had also taken a liking to the Han tribe soldiers' powerful weapons. Now, not to mention a custom-made version, even if he were allowed to join the army and get a standard steel knife, he would already be content. As soon as the tiger tribe chief finished speaking, the neighboring sharp horn tribe, which was on good terms with the tiger tribe, also decided. Chief Han, our sharp horn tribe is also willing to join. The Han tribe can raise so many domesticated animals, which is naturally much stronger than us who only raise antelopes. We are willing to learn from the chief in the future to raise all kinds of domesticated animals for the Han tribe. Good, good, good. Welcome to join. You will definitely like life in the Han tribe. I guarantee that every tribesman will have something they like to do. You happily said good 3 times in a row. The addition of the sharp horn tribe was too important. Not just because they had many people, but more importantly, they also had thousands of saiga antelopes. This was what you valued most. Among the more than 20 chiefs, those who have now expressed their intention to join the Han tribe already number 7, and they are all populous tribes. At least large tribes of around 300 people, of course that's still an understatement. Like the Horn tribe, which relies on raising antelope for a living, already has a population close to 600. Although the average is relatively low, these 7 tribes combined also totaled 2,005 or 600. This will definitely allow the Han tribe's strength to reach a new level. Moreover, among these more than 20 leaders, only about 17 have populations around 300. The others are all around 100 people. Among them, there are 4 small tribes with fewer than 100 people, who, even before the war started, had already expressed their intention to join the Han tribe. And then at a platform, the newly added population from these 7 tribes has already reached nearly 3,000. You were extremely excited. Hanyang City already had a population of over 4,000. Adding these 3,000, the Han tribe's total population finally advanced towards 5 digits again. You calmed your emotions. You once again looked at the other leaders. Now, you, by stopping market trade, had already forced them to a dead end. If they didn't join the Han tribe, they wouldn't have white salt to eat. They would return to their previous way of life. And they would have to face enemies that could appear at any time. So, as long as they weren't foolish, they would basically choose to join the Han tribe. After all, who wouldn't want to live a good life? Even if they disagreed, their tribesmen who were visiting the city probably wouldn't bear to leave. Humph, 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 humph. The remaining ones who hadn't made a decision, the leaders, looked at the tribes that had just joined the Han tribe. The leaders then looked at Hanyang City, which was already full to the brim. Immediately, their hearts began to pound. Even if they wanted to join the Han tribe now, Hanyang City probably couldn't accommodate them. Leader Han, our Zhu tribe is also willing to join the Han tribe. It's just that I see Hanyang City is only so big, and it's already home to many people. Now that so many more people have joined, won't there be enough space to live? The Zhu tribe leader looked regretful. Why didn't he speak up first? Now, they might not even want them. The other leaders also looked at you seriously. Clearly, this was also a question they wanted an answer to. At this moment, the remaining tribal leaders were all worried that the Han tribe's current housing would not be able to accommodate thousands of tribesmen. After your thorough explanation, those leaders finally dispelled their concerns. And they admired your leadership abilities immensely. Their own tribes had at most 600 people, and arranging work every day gave them terrible headaches. But you could manage a tribe of thousands of people in an orderly fashion. Everyone had their own work to do, and the tribe was becoming more and more prosperous. Now, with so many tribes joining, the population suddenly increased significantly. But you seem to still think there weren't enough people. The Han tribe always had endless work to do. But this was also good. They no longer had to worry about what to do, they just needed to complete tasks as you instructed. Everyone believed that you would surely lead the Han tribe to become even stronger. All questions had been asked, and you had explained everything very clearly. The leaders also felt reassured. So, most of the leaders decided to join the Han tribe. In the end, only 2 or 3 were still hesitating. But seeing that everyone else had joined, they also had no choice but to join. This made you especially happy. Just the large tribes of 300 people or more accounted for 17 new members. The total population instantly soared to 5,007 or 800. Adding a few small tribes that voluntarily pledged allegiance, the population directly surpassed 6,000. This was even more than the Han tribe's original population. Now, the Han tribe's total population exceeded 10,000, becoming a super large tribe. This didn't even include the captured slaves, who totaled over 1,100 people. However, the Han tribe now had a large population and great power, so the slaves couldn't cause any trouble. After dealing with these leaders, you were in a great mood, taking them to the celebration feast. On the square in the center of the city, the tribesmen all gathered together. Each household brought food. The staple food was rice. Although there was no roasted whole lamb, there was lamb and cabbage stewed in a large pot. Fatty but not greasy, especially suitable for a communal meal. You sat at the main table. The table was laden with a rich variety of dishes. There was lamb and cabbage soup, stir-fried eggs with chili, stir-fried eggs with tomatoes, stir-fried pork with dried long beans, and deep-fried peanuts. These dishes were all taught by Yuta Xiaodai. They have now become common household dishes throughout the city. The leaders ate these delicacies they had never tasted before. They secretly rejoiced that they had joined the Han tribe, feeling that these delicious foods alone made it worthwhile. During the meal, the leaders asked about the relocation. You told them, in another 7 or 8 days, the rice in Hanyang City would ripen. At that time, they would be busy for a month before they could plant the second crop. Their tribes also planted rice, only half a month later than Hanyang City. So they should move after harvesting their crops at the end of the month. You also specifically reminded the Pointed Horn tribe that they hadn't planted any crops. Those who raised antelopes could start moving immediately. You also sent a team to help, to ensure that those Saiga antelopes could successfully reach the Han tribe. After the communal meal, the leaders and their warriors all stayed in the city to rest. Early the next morning, you sent a team to help the Pointed Horn tribe move, and to bring back those thousands of Saiga antelopes. The other tribes went back to prepare first, and would move after harvesting their crops. You also sent another team to escort the captives and women to the new city, preparing for them to participate in the construction of the new city. A few days later, you received a reply from Yui, saying that the new city's walls were almost complete. Although the city gates hadn't been installed yet, they could temporarily block the openings with war horses. The new city now had over 300 laborers, and the number was constantly increasing. The speed of wall construction was very fast. You then received news from Yofu, saying that in their recent trade, they had acquired 280 cattle and 450 horses. They also purchased a large amount of wool. Yufu asked if you had any other arrangements. You told them to send the livestock directly to the new city, while the wool and animal hides would be transported back to Hanyang City for processing. In the blink of an eye, it was mid-April. Hanyang City's rice harvest was bountiful. Golden rice ears covered the fields. The tribesmen enthusiastically harvested the crops. The output of new grain provided a guarantee for the development of the Han tribe. In another month, the rice of the other tribes would also ripen. At that time, they would move over with a large amount of grain. The new city's food problem would also be solved. Feeding tens of thousands of people was no small matter. They would consume several meals worth of rice in a single day. Fortunately, Yofu had acquired many more livestock. Now the Han tribe could cultivate more land. The plan was to complete within 1.5 months the relocation of all tribesmen. And within 3 months, to cultivate 3,000 mu of rice paddies in the new city area. To ensure that this winter, the new city area would be self-sufficient in food. At the same time, enough livestock feed for winter could also be stored. The Han tribe's rice harvest was in full swing. In just 1 or 2 days, the city streets and squares were covered with grain. Once this rice was dried, it could be stored in warehouses. Brother Zhou took 8 days. Immediately after was plowing and fertilizing, to sow the second season's seeds. Just as the Han tribe was busy plowing, Shuda returned with the tribesmen of the Pointed Horn tribe. A total of over 580 people, and over 3,100 saiga antelopes. Now you could rest assured. With these antelopes, there would be no worries about meat for this winter. After the Pointed Horn tribe joined, you had them rest in Hanyang City first. During dinner that evening, you gathered the original residents of Hanyang City, and asked who was willing to move to the new city. The new city currently only had a circle of rammed earth walls. There was nothing else. Going there, they still had to build houses, clear land, and plant crops, a heavy task. But there were also benefits. The houses in the new city were twice as large as those in Hanyang City. They could build 5 main rooms. And there were separate kitchens and side rooms. In the end, over 70 households from Hanyang City and 80 households from the Pointed Horn tribe decided to move to the new city. The remaining 50 households, on the other hand, moved into the empty houses vacated in Hanyang City. Among those who moved to the new city, many were artisans from the workshops. After arriving in the new city, they could quickly organize the new tribesmen to start work. To get the new city on track as soon as possible. You also had the carpentry workshop rush to produce a set of windmills and parts for an automatic sawmill. So they could take them to the new city to build workshops. This way, the new city could process its own wood without needing to transport it from Hanyang anymore. At the same time, they also brought a large quantity of seeds and farm tools, ready to open up farmland. After these people departed, you then dispatched Beast Tooth and 3 of the 5 great blood disciples to lead people to various tribes to deliver sickles, to help them quickly harvest their grain. After all, these tribes couldn't afford sickles before, and harvesting by themselves would be too slow and would delay your migration progress. With the increase in the new city's population and the heavy workload, you felt it was time to send a chief steward there. You thought for a long time and decided to recall Big Tree, who was mining in 8 Treasures Mountain. Big Tree had been with you for a long time and was very capable. He had served as temporary steward when you were away before. You immediately sent an eagle message for Big Tree to return, and had Feather go to 8 Treasures Mountain to take his place. After Big Tree returned, you planned to have him be the steward of the new city, and also bring Oil back. You had other plans for him. Oil, like his elder brother, also liked to travel around. At first, he was quite happy to handle urgent matters, but over time he found it boring. It was just watching people work and paying wages every day. Since he wanted to travel, you would grant his wish. After several attacks from the cannibals, you felt a deep sense of crisis, deciding to send an elite squad to the north for reconnaissance, to find the cannibals' lair. To see if they could strike at them. If they could annihilate them, that would be best, but the difficulty was too great. The current goal was to first clearly scout the enemy situation. This squad not only had to reconnoiter but also had to draw maps. You discovered the Han tribe still didn't have a proper map. Drawing maps was not a simple task. It required knowledge of mathematics, geography, and drafting tools. The most important thing for drawing maps was to have a compass, which is a magnetic compass. Without a compass, relying solely on the sun to determine direction, the resulting maps would have significant errors. Fortunately, the Han tribe now had the materials to make a compass, bronze and magnets. You had people forge a rhombus-shaped pointer from pure steel, and rub it with natural magnetite to magnetize it. Then cast a bronze disc. The base was red. The disc had a diameter of 9 centimeters. 8 directions and 360-degree markings were engraved on it. There was a small hole in the center to fix the magnetic needle, and a small iron rod could also be inserted. When the magnetic needle failed, to determine direction by the sun's shadow. With this tool, drawing maps became much more reliable. The compass you made was indeed very useful, especially in the north, in places with strong magnetic fields like the Salt Lake. The magnetic needle could easily fail. But sunlight would not be affected by magnetic fields, so using shadows to determine direction was the safest method. You had someone make an exquisite wooden box for the compass, and also used the method of erecting a wooden stick to observe shadows to find true south and true north. The direction of the shortest shadow during the day was true north. Through this method, you also measured the magnetic declination of this planet. The compass could finally be put to good use. Regardless of spring, summer, autumn, or winter, the direction of the shadow would not change. This was the most reliable method. With the compass, next was to prepare the tools for drawing maps, especially the survey poles. These were indispensable. You also selected some people and taught them basic geography and mathematics. To draw maps, the simplest method was to use a scale and grids. For example, if the map scale was 1:10,000, drawing 10 centimeters represented 1 actual kilometer. Now mark 10-centimeter grids on the map. Then, insert survey poles on the ground to mark coordinate points, and use a tape measure and compass to measure 3 other points. This way, you could draw the map for 1 grid square. Then slowly expand until the entire map was filled. Although this method was simple, it also had drawbacks. For example, it couldn't measure altitude. It was useless when encountering high mountains and hills. However, conditions were limited now. Being able to draw a rough topography was good enough. Areas for contour lines could be left blank and noted, to be filled in later when conditions allowed. Maps drawn this way would be very large. A single animal hide might not be enough to draw much. But it didn't matter. First, let the assigned members draw carefully. You would then compile them into one large historical map. This way, the full panorama of the land could be seen. The plan was set. Just wait for the tribesmen to move and the player tribe to stabilize. You then sent Yui to survey and map. He was so idle in the tribe he was going crazy. 2 days later, Dashu returned to Hanyang City. You gave him some simple instructions, tasking him with the management of the new district. If he didn't understand anything, he could send a message to ask. Dashu readily agreed, only requesting to bring his woman and children. You also agreed. 3 days later, Dashu arrived at the new district. Finally, Yui was swapped back. Gui rode his horse back to Hanyang City at a gallop. As soon as he saw you, he started complaining. "Leader, you finally let me come back. The new city was too boring. There was nothing there, and I couldn't even go out. Watching the laborers work every day, I was almost bored to death. It's better to stay in Hanyang City. It's much livelier here. You can make me do anything." You glanced at him and said lightly, "Aren't there plenty of tasks over there too? If you're idle, why don't you work with them?" Gui quickly defended himself. "Of course I worked. Leader, you have to believe me. I really wasn't slacking off. It's just that people from the surrounding tribes kept looking for me. You made me responsible for recruiting workers promptly. I can't just work and ignore them, can I?" You didn't respond. You took him for a walk along the city wall and asked him, "So, there are many people looking for work?" Yui chuckled. Those tribesmen. At first, they didn't quite trust the Han tribe. They wanted to be paid after each day's work, fearing they would be cheated. But after a few days, they became addicted to the Han tribe's food. Yui cooked large pot dishes according to the method you taught, using peanut oil. The aroma was enticing. Those tribesmen even ate the vegetable leaves with relish. Some even put the day's meal into large bowls to take back and feed their families. A few days later, more people came and brought several women. Yui had them help with cooking. They didn't want white salt, only rice. Each time they accumulated 10 jin of rice, they would take turns sending it back to their tribe. Yui asked and then learned that after the Han tribe moved in, there were fewer wild beasts nearby. Their warriors couldn't catch prey. The children in their tribes were starving. He felt this was a good opportunity to recruit people, so he had them bring their children too. Children could do some light work and get 3 meals. Even very young children would get meals. As a result, those tribes really brought all their children. Older children herded sheep. Younger ones stayed with their mothers. Gradually, adults, women, and children all came. These tribes saw that the Han tribe kept its word. If they worked, they would have food to eat, and could save some things. So they simply all moved over. Yu said proudly to you, now several tribes have moved over. They feel that although working here is tiring, it's much better than going hungry sometimes and full others. You listened and were very satisfied. This method of peacefully absorbing population is the best. Then you smiled and said to Yui, not bad work. Huh? Why are you still unwilling to stay there? Or should I send you back again? Yui quickly shook his head upon hearing this. Oh, my lord. I just can't stay in one place. How about letting me go to the grasslands with my elder brother? You shook your head. Your brother leading the team in the grasslands is enough. I have a new mission for you. But the conditions are a bit harsh and a bit dangerous. I'm afraid you won't dare to go. Yui heard this. His eyes lit up. I'm not afraid of hardship nor danger. Quickly, tell me what the mission is. I want you to scout the north, the situation of the cannibal tribes, and draw maps along the way. Are you willing to go? Yui scratched his head. Scouting the cannibal tribes is no problem. But what does drawing maps mean? You explained. A map is a topographical map of mountains, rivers, and terrain drawn on animal hide, marking the locations of various tribes. Didn't you and your brother have one before? Yui suddenly realized. He immediately straightened up. Leader, rest assured. I guarantee I will complete the mission. In the following days, you selected 11 people from the tribesmen, and together with Yui, formed a 12-person squad. Among these people, there were those skilled in communication, hunters with rich outdoor survival experience, skilled archers, warriors, those who could write, and those skilled in drawing. Every day, you led them to learn how to use a compass, Belgian coordinates, and other mapping knowledge. You also took them to survey the terrain around Hanyang City. They made a sand table with mud to simulate various landforms. Once they had learned enough, you started preparing equipment for them. Besides survey poles, there were outdoor survival knives, long knives, military shovels, and the most important craft. You also had the carpentry team develop new recurve composite bows and crossbows. This time, the surveying team would take them for practical testing. After more than half a month, the surveying team completed their training. Yui eagerly led his people and set off. Each of the 12 people had 2 horses, carrying living supplies, survey poles, bows, and crossbows. They grandly embarked on the journey north. You took people to the new district to check on the resettlement of the newly joined tribesmen. By the time you reached your destination, it was already nearing evening. Many tribesmen who had been busy all day began to finish work. Next was their favorite dinner time. Many people who had seen you greeted you. Dashu received the news and quickly ran out to greet you. With a smiling face, he walked and reported his work to you. Now, quite a bit of wasteland has been reclaimed. The 900 slaves who arrived here have all been assigned to dig the river. This time, to finish early, all sections are being dug 2 meters wide and 2 meters deep. As long as it can provide drinking water, it's fine. The excavated soil is piled up there for now. After the crops are planted, kilns will be built to fire bricks. Currently, most tribesmen are busy plowing fields. All usable cattle and horses have been taken to work. When there aren't enough, some even use people to pull plows. Currently, 600 mu have been cultivated. The goal of 3,000 mu will definitely be completed within a month. You listened and nodded in satisfaction. You then asked about the vegetable cultivation. Dashu quickly pointed to the north side of the small city and explained, the vegetable fields are on the north side of the city. Some land has already been cleared to plant cabbage. However, it's a bit insufficient right now. People are being sent to continue reclaiming land. We plan to plant some long beans and loofah. Supply will be replenished soon. Next, you inquired about the newly joined tribesmen and the situation of the tribes who came to work for food. Dashu answered earnestly, some of the newly joined tribesmen are complaining that they don't have houses to live in yet. They could only live in straw huts. But they really liked the sleeping mats distributed last time. Now that it's hot, sleeping directly outside is no problem. And then there are our city walls. This made them very happy. After all, they joined the Han tribe precisely because they feared further enemy attacks. Now that they can sleep inside the city walls, they feel much more secure. Also, regarding the land reclamation, everyone is working very hard. They had planted crops before and all know that food is life. No one dares to be lazy in this regard. Moreover, now when working they are using our metal farm tools. And there are cattle and horses helping. It's much stronger than their original bone and stone tools. Everyone is especially happy. Unbeknownst to them, the two walked to the riverbank. He then asked about the situation of the Cha tribe. This river is so wide, there should be a lot of fish in it. Did the Cha tribe start fishing after they arrived? Dashu replied, they tried fishing a few times after they arrived, but the catch wasn't great. So I told them to stop for now. They are currently helping with the plowing every day. The Cha tribe leader said, this river is too deep. They can't stand in the water to spear fish. I had our tribesmen use fish traps or small nets to catch them, but they couldn't catch anything. The river is too wide, and the fish generally don't come near the banks. I'm thinking about whether we can build a few more boats this year. That way, fishing would be a bit easier. He thought for a moment after hearing this. He said, that is indeed a problem. Don't worry about this matter. I'll arrange it later. Hanyang City has a timber processing plant. Next time, I'll have people send the parts over, and then we can assemble the wooden boats directly here. As for the rest, we'll talk about it once the timber mill here is built. The two returned to the city while talking. In the northwest corner of the city was a large sheepfold. Thousands of well-fed antelopes were leisurely resting inside. To the southwest was a large patch of grass. Under the straw huts, sleeping mats were laid out. Some people were sitting there eating. In the center of the city there was also a large straw house. Inside, several simple stoves were built with mud. A long line was forming in front, waiting for food. He was not in a hurry. He arranged for Dashu to prepare food for him. He himself began to wander around the straw hut area, looking at the tribesmen who were eating. Under a low straw hut, several children were sitting on sleeping mats, scooping dinner into their mouths. He walked up to them. The children immediately became nervous. They timidly asked if he was the leader of the Han tribe. He smiled and replied, that's right. How did you know? The child naively said, my mom told me. She said the one who was riding a big monster earlier and wearing clothes is the leader of this tribe. He then asked, so you're not from our tribe then? Do you like our tribe? Do you want to become a member of our tribe? The child's eyes lit up, of course I do. The food your tribe makes is delicious. I want to eat it every day. But I have to stay with my mom, so I can't join your tribe. Then is your mom willing to join our tribe? The child hugged his bowl and loudly shouted to a woman who was walking towards them not far away. My mom is coming. You can ask her yourself. The woman was about in her early 20s. Hearing her child shouting and seeing a strange young man wearing a golden crown and linen clothes, she was startled for a moment. Then she quickly jogged over, looking a bit flustered. Seeing this, he asked her, can you eat your fill in the Han tribe? Is the work tiring? The woman nervously replied, yes, I can eat my fill. Every day, after serving everyone, there's still some left over. I can't even finish it all by myself. He nodded and asked her, how do you find the Han tribe? Do you want to stay in the Han tribe? The woman immediately expressed her willingness happily. The Han tribe has many people and so many good things for themselves. They heard the tribal leader say that everyone would work here until autumn. If rice could truly grow from the soil by then, he would bring his clansmen to stay here. Hearing him say this, you finally understood the thoughts of these laborers. Overall, they were willing to join the Han tribe, however, because they had never grown crops before, and wanted to see the results of farming with their own eyes. They hadn't made up their minds yet. You too understood. After all, this wasn't a big deal. Once they gradually got used to life in the Han tribe, it would probably be hard to make them go back to a difficult life. They themselves wouldn't be willing. After understanding all this, you felt relieved and went to find Dashu to eat together. People who had been busy all day also began to eat and rest one after another, enjoying this hard-earned food. The next day, you remained in New City. You carefully checked the various work reports of the clansmen. If you found something not done well, you would personally guide them. And so, you were busy until you watched the first batch of rice seeds being sown. This was a message delivered by a flying eagle from Hanyang City, and the letter was delivered into your hands. The letter said that the caravan led by Yufu had returned. They were currently stationed at the dwelling place of the original power tribe, awaiting your instructions. You immediately wrote a reply, telling Shu Wu to send people to receive the caravan's vehicles, and send the animal hides and will back to Hanyang factory to begin mass production of Mao cloth. In addition, send a team of people with Yofu and the caravan, along with the cattle and horses they traded for, to come to the new city area. After all, only this area had enough pastures to feed so many livestock. Moreover, New City was undergoing construction, and would also need a large amount of supplies. All of this had been agreed upon with Yofu in a previous letter. The letter reached Shu Wu's hands. He knew you wouldn't return, so he could only have people carry out these orders. Several large carts of supplies were pulled back to Hanyang City. The warriors who had previously been to the new city area also rode horses, taking Yofu and his group eastward. This team of people had no burdens. They all rode horses, traveling light. In just one day, they arrived at the new city area. 280 cattle, 450 horses, a total of over 700 livestock suddenly arrived in the new city area. This startled those new members who had just joined the Han tribe not long ago, as well as the laborers who came to work. They were all startled. But more than that, there was shock and excitement. After all, these livestock could not only help people with a lot of work, but were also visible sources of meat and large quantities of animal hides. For a time, everyone in the new city area was invigorated. Yofu soon met with you. He chuckled as he introduced to you several unfamiliar faces in the caravan. Only then did you notice that he had brought people back from the grasslands again. Yofu first performed a bow. Then he happily said, "I've been away for so long, and I'm finally back. I didn't expect that in just a few months, our second city would already be taking shape. These are all new members who have joined our tribe." You also smiled and led them into the city. Finding a thatched shed, you all sat down. Yofu began to report. The trading aspect was relatively smooth. With Ling Feng, a local, present, he saved us a lot of trouble. Unlike before, aimlessly wandering around, the several tribes we traded with this time were all tribes Ling Feng led us to. These dozen or so people are all Ling Feng's friends. Their backgrounds are also similar to his. They knew Ling Feng had joined our Han tribe and was living well, so they also followed along, planning to join our tribe. These dozen or so people included both men and women. Hearing Yofu say that the young man in front of them, wearing a golden crown, was the leader, they quickly stood up, and with a somewhat off-tuned Chinese accent, called out Sholing leader. They must have learned it on the way. They didn't speak much Chinese. You also busied yourself greeting them, said a few words of welcome, then had them sit to one side, and continued listening to Yofu's report on the situation. You took a sip of plain boiled water, and asked, "Are there any other matters regarding this trade? Those nomadic tribes, did they say anything about our goods? Or did they mention what they themselves wanted? We're not close to the grasslands, and a trip there isn't easy. Next time, if we can bring more things, we can also expand a bit more the variety of our goods. And we can also exchange for more." Yofu's eyes lit up. He suddenly remembered something. He quickly said, "They want many things. The most important are our horse tack, especially the stirrups and saddles. Then there are our ox carts. Their nomadic tribes often need to move. If they had a few large carts, moving and transporting things would be more convenient. And there are our long knives. Although they haven't used them, the scissors we sold them are also made of iron. They particularly like these iron weapons. Also, the iron pots we brought this time, they liked them very much too. Although the price wasn't cheap, they all sold out. I think next time we can bring more." You fell into deep thought after hearing this. Horse tack, vehicles, and ironware, these three things really couldn't be given to them casually. Just then, Yofu suddenly remembered something else. The expression on his face immediately became troubled. "Oh, chieftain, during this trade we also encountered something not so good. I'm worried that our future trades on the grasslands might not be so easy." Seeing his expression, you immediately frowned. You quickly asked what bad thing happened. Yofu said that they had traded with a total of 7 tribes this time. In trading with the southernmost tribe, he brought out white rock and pottery wares, but they didn't want any of it. They did want the iron pots and scissors, however. In the end, they only exchanged for some animal hides and wool, and only a few cattle and horses. Hearing Yofu say this, your brows furrowed even deeper. Yofu didn't dally. He immediately took out a few things from his animal hide pouch and placed them before you. This startled you so much you almost cried out. The first was a yellow bamboo tube, as thick as an arm. Inside was actually half a barrel of white granules. You brought it to your nose and sniffed. The bamboo tube immediately wafted a strong scent of the ocean. You pinched a bit and put it in your mouth to taste. Then you spat out a mouthful of saliva. If this isn't sea salt, what else could it be? Before you could even utter a few words, Yu Fu pulled out another item which almost made your jaw drop. Because what he took out was surprisingly a gleaming white metal bowl. The bowl was very large. The inner wall of the bowl was very smooth, so much so that it could be used as a mirror. On the outside, there was also a relief carving of a picture, and some hieroglyphs you couldn't quite understand. There were several people in the painting. One person held a large bowl in their hands, with the bowl's opening facing the sun in the sky. Another person held a torch in front of the bowl. The others all knelt on the ground, watching devoutly. You naturally understood the meaning of this scene. It was clearly using the focused sunlight to start a fire. This was a physical phenomenon of light reflection. Let's put aside this picture of drawing heavenly fire, for now. Just consider the bowl itself with its high reflectivity. Felt heavy in the hand. You went up and bit the edge of the bowl. It was quite soft. This was clearly a silver bowl. Now, from these two items you could draw a conclusion. There was a tribe near the sea. They could dry sea salt, and bamboo was abundant in that area. Moreover, the local area is rich in bamboo. They used bamboo as containers, and they also had a silver mine nearby. They understood metal smelting and casting technology. Look at the purity and style of this silver bowl. The casting skill is also very high. You weren't too surprised by this, because silver is a metal with very stable chemical properties. It exists in nature in its elemental form. In other words, they could directly find natural silver nuggets or silver sand. However, this is a minority after all. In fact, most silver is still in the form of minerals, stored in silver mines. Another point is that silver has a very low melting point. It only needs over 960 degrees to melt into liquid. As long as the other party knows how to build a furnace, reaching this temperature is absolutely no problem. Or perhaps they even have their own coal mines. You know that the copper mines of the Han tribe require a high temperature of at least 1,500 degrees. With a melting point below 1,000 degrees, silver is obviously easier for primitive people to discover and learn to use. This is also a normal thing. Then the question arises. A tribe that worships celestial fire, this is your guess. After all, they depicted the process of obtaining celestial fire at night. Why would they draw something not very important on it? Just like the Han tribe's hanzi, sweat, which is also a very important thing. They would dry their sweat themselves, then put it into bamboo tubes, and run to the grasslands to compete with themselves. What the hell is this? Primitive society, and they've already encountered business competitors. Relying solely on the information available at hand, it's not difficult to analyze that this is definitely a powerful tribe. Holding a bowl in one hand and that bamboo tube in the other, he pondered for a moment. He asked Yu Fu, besides these, is there anything else? Yu Fu beckoned to his subordinates. His hand signaled, and someone immediately went to their horses to get things. A large pile of clinking and clanking items. It was immediately exposed. There weren't many items, but the variety was complete. There were short bamboo tubes as large as the bowl, which they actually used as bowls. There were also bamboo cups, bamboo kettles with holes drilled and hemp ropes tied on them, which could be carried around. From these, it's not hard to see that they already knew how to make hemp ropes, or rather, produce hemp products. There were other larger items as well, such as sleeping mats woven from thin bamboo strips, and bamboo spears, which are sword bamboo. It seems they have quite a variety of bamboo species there. Additionally, there was one item that greatly surprised you. A wide bamboo strip woven from bamboo slips and hemp rope. It had characters and pictures carved on it. Yu Fu asked in confusion, do you know what these things in your hand are? This tribe is also very capable. They can make so many good things. You explained patiently, these things are nothing special. The rock salt inside here is actually something you should have seen. It's the rock from the eagle tribe that contains salty water. When it's dried by the sun, you get it. The sea salt is the same. It's just that the sea is much larger than a salt lake, so large that you can't see the end of it. They must have lived by the sea, which is why they discovered the method of sun-drying salt. It's different from our mineral salt. The smell in there is the smell of seawater. After your explanation, those people from Luofu who had been to the eagle tribe all understood. They immediately felt that there was nothing magical about it. You also picked up other items and continued to explain to them. As for the remaining items, there is this solemn container. It's actually a naturally growing hollow plant called bamboo. It grows very thin and tall, and can basically be used for anything. Yofu and the others also nodded in sudden realization. Originally, they thought these were all good things. Now, hearing you say it, they feel it's very ordinary. It's just a plant. What surprised and admired them was, you really seem to know everything. Yes, just by looking at these things, you know what they're made of. And they were things no one had ever seen before. However, regarding this, they were already used to it. Yofu couldn't help but ask further. What else can this plant called bamboo in your hand do? Can it be eaten? You replied. This plant every year will sprout a tender shoot from its roots. It's called bamboo shoot. That thing is edible. However, it cannot be a staple food. In addition, bamboo has many uses. As large as making houses and bamboo rafts, as small as bamboo poles and bamboo spears, bamboo crafts and bamboo pieces, it can even be used to make bamboo shields and bamboo armor. In addition, it can also be used to make bamboo pens and bamboo paper. In short, it can be used to make many things. You can even treat it as a versatile material. The group of people listened, dumbfounded. They never thought this plant called bamboo was so useful. That so many things could be made from it. Now, you are also very interested in this tribe with bamboo. You hope to learn more about the other party's information. So you asked, besides these things brought back, have you found out any other useful information? For example, do they have vehicles? Do they grow grain? Do they weave cloth? And do they have any other metal products or anything? Luofu recalled and said, I also asked about this. They don't have vehicles. When they go to trade, it's all by horse caravan. One horse carries 2 large baskets and some other things. Anyway, those who come here to the grassland don't have cars. As for whether their tribe has them, I don't know if they have them or if they even would. Those nomadic tribesmen said, they wear animal skins or felt. Making felt should also have been learned from nomadic tribes. They probably don't have other metals. The only metal they brought to the nomadic tribes was this kind of bowl. And I heard it's not even used for eating. What its use is, I don't know either. Grain? They should have some. I heard from those nomadic tribesmen that they've seen those people eat a round thing. It's very dry and hard, but it can be stored for a long time. There's also a yellow seed that I haven't seen. That's what I heard from them. Hearing that the other party had grain, your eyes immediately lit up. You hurriedly asked Yofu, don't those nomadic tribes have any? Did you exchange any with them? Yofu directly shook his head. His face was also full of regret. He knew the importance of grain. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to bring back wild wheat last time. But just then, among the several grassland wild men brought back this time, someone quietly raised their hand. It seemed they wanted to speak, but were still a bit timid. You saw him raise his hand, and immediately signaled him not to be afraid. He could tell you anything. The newly joined wild man saw you smiling, and his courage also grew. He took out a cloth bag from his bosom, directly handed it to you and said, Chief, is this the grain you were talking about? As soon as you heard him say this, your mood, which had been somewhat lost due to not getting new grain seeds, immediately ignited a spark of hope. Could there be an unexpected harvest? You immediately opened the cloth bag impatiently. Inside, there were indeed several plant seeds. Seeing these seeds, you couldn't help but tremble all over. Those were clearly 2 soybeans and 3 golden corn kernels. Suddenly obtaining 2 important crops, this was truly too important for the current Han tribe. The Han tribe's current staple food was rice. Previously, it could only be planted in areas with abundant water sources to be cultivated. As for wheat, corn, and soybeans, these 3 crops, their water consumption was not as high as rice. This meant that as long as these crops could be planted, the Han tribe could expand to those water-scarce areas. After all, having grain in this era was equivalent to having everything. Rice, corn, and wheat could all be promoted as staple foods. In addition, soybeans are also an excellent crop. Rich in protein and fat, extremely nutritious. Many soy products can also be made, for example, soy milk, tofu pudding, fermented bean curd, and so on. Just thinking about these, your mouth was already watering. In addition, soybeans can also enrich the soil when planted. Soybeans, through photosynthesis, can absorb a lot of nitrogen from the air. Finally, it gathers in the roots and stems. Many root nodules will grow on the roots and stems of soybeans. These root nodules are equivalent to nitrogen fertilizer. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium required for plant growth. Nitrogen fertilizer would no longer be lacking, right? It's simply a divine tool. Phosphorus is found in animal excrement. Potassium can also be obtained from plant ash. Now with soybeans, it's simply perfect. You stabilized your excited emotions. Holding these 5 seeds, you asked the new tribesman, "This thing is indeed a grain seed. Where did you get it?" The wild man replied, "I've also seen those people on the grasslands before. I've done some trades with them. I exchanged sheep with them for white rock and arrow shafts, and their large baskets. These few seeds were found in the large basket I exchanged for. They must have dropped them in there. I haven't seen this thing before, but since they brought it, it should be a good thing, right? So I picked it out of the basket and kept it, thinking I could use it to exchange for something later." You said very happily, "This thing is indeed very valuable. Tell me, what do you want? As long as I can do it, I will definitely fulfill your wish." The man immediately became excited. "Really, Chief? Then I want a steel knife like Captain Yofu's." You were not stingy. You directly took a sharp military knife from your waist and threw it to him as a reward for his grain offering. The man took it, gesturing happily, and quickly bowed to you in thanks. The others were also envious, wishing they could also find some grain seeds. A few of 2 kinds of seeds exchanged for such a beautiful knife. This kid really hit the jackpot. Why didn't they have such good fortune? Unexpectedly obtaining 2 very valuable crops, you were very happy. It was currently summer, and also very suitable for planting. So you thought, quickly bring these seeds back to Hanyang City to personally cultivate them, and quickly expand the planting area. However, just at this moment, Yufu also raised a new question. "Chief, are our trades still going to continue? If we encounter the Zhui tribe's caravan in the future, what should we do?" This question stumped you. After all, it involved foreign strategy, and wasn't something to be decided hastily. Should you choose peaceful coexistence or direct hostility? You quickly had an idea in your mind. The grassland was like a big cake. Both the Han tribe and the Zhui tribe were vying for it. The 2 tribes were in a competitive relationship. Since they were obstructing the Han tribe's development, they had to be fully suppressed and targeted. Thinking this, you scanned the crowd present. There were too many newcomers here, who didn't yet feel a strong sense of belonging to the Han tribe. Moreover, with so many people, gossip was inevitable. Such an important matter was not suitable for these common soldiers to know. So you said, "We'll discuss this matter when we get back. You've also been out for so long. Go home and rest for a while first. Even if we go out, we'll need time to prepare our next batch of goods. Everyone, come back with me first. I also need to plant these seeds as soon as possible." Yofu immediately understood your meaning. Speaking of which, it had been several months since he'd been home. He wondered if his children would even recognize him. "By the way, Chief, why haven't we seen Yuin? Didn't you have him managing urgent matters here?" You smiled and pointed at Yofu, saying, "That kid can't stay in one place, you 2 brothers are just alike. I've given him other tasks to do. He's currently out on a mission. I'll tell you more when we get back." And so, you stayed in the new city for another day, meticulously guiding them on the direction of their future work. The next day, you led Yofu and his group back to Hanyang City. Wanxin was thinking of planting the 2 newly acquired seeds as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the distant southwest, the Zhui tribe's caravan had already obtained goods from the Han tribe and was on its way home. They traveled southwest from the grassland, taking over a month, finally reaching the southwestern tip of the continent. Not far from there was their homeland, an island covered in bamboo. On the evening of the last day of April, 50 sturdy men wearing bamboo hats and bare-chested were gathered on the coast. The area was full of reefs with no sandy beach at all. The cattle and horses they had bought were leisurely grazing on a nearby slope. The evening sea breeze was gentle and mild, stirring up layers of delicate, cool evening glow in the bay ahead. Reflected on the sea surface, it seemed to dye the seawater red. Countless seagulls circled low over the sea, occasionally diving into the water, snatching a sea fish and swallowing it whole. In the seawater near the shore, several men with bamboo baskets tied to their waists were diving to gather oysters. Others stood on higher rocks, holding homemade bamboo bows and arrows, occasionally shooting down a seabird. Whenever one was hit, a large dog would dart into the sea nearby and retrieve the shot seabird. Needless to say, this dog was also introduced from the nomadic tribes. A little further up, several men were setting up a large iron pot on the rocks. Below it, brushwood was burning. Seafood was stewing in the pot, and a circle of corn cakes was stuck to the rim of the pot. One man, while sticking cakes to the iron pot, said to the leader, who was playing with scissors nearby, "Chief, what do you think this pot is made of? We don't have this kind of metal in our region. It looks harder than our white gold, yellow gold, or red gold. And look how sharp these scissors are. If they were made into weapons, they'd be incredibly powerful. I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to defeat them. The leader, who was trimming his nails with the large scissors, said without raising his head. Who said we have to fight them? That's not for us to decide. When we get back, we'll hand these things over to the council. Let them figure it out then. Anyway, I don't really want to fight. The man sticking cake sighed, me neither. I also think we should befriend them. It would be great if we could learn their technology. Look at the wool cloth they make. I can't imagine how they do it. They collect so much wool from the grassland, make it into wool cloth, and then sell it back to them. How many cattle and horses must that be worth? The leader finished trimming his nails, carefully put away the scissors, and pulled out a piece of wool cloth the size of a handkerchief. He had traded 2 jars of sea salt for it from a nomadic tribe. Even the chief of that nomadic tribe didn't have much, only a little over 2 meters. The sample given by the Han tribe was eventually cut down to a small piece for him. He looked at the wool cloth for a while longer, unsure what he was thinking. He looked up at the setting sun, then turned to a relatively older man behind him and asked, "What day is it today? Is it the returning moon? Why hasn't the tide receded yet?" The older man pulled out a roll of bamboo slips he carried with him, made some calculations, then looked at the direction the moon was rising in the sky, confirmed it several times, and finally nodded, saying, "That's right. Today is the day of the returning moon. The tide will definitely recede tonight." The leader put away his wool cloth and took out a bamboo bowl, then started scooping rice to eat. Then call everyone back. Eat early and rest. Tomorrow, as soon as it's light, we'll set off for home. The other team members called to each other and soon gathered to eat. After eating, they rested in 2 bamboo houses not far away. These had been built by them long ago to serve as a landing base. Some supplies were stored inside. Night soon fell. The sea breeze grew stronger than during the day, stirring up waves in the bay and blowing away the clouds in the sky. 2 bright moons hung in the sky, gradually converging from different directions into one spot, forming a beautiful halo in the mid-sky. Just at this moment, the seawater in the bay also began to surge, influenced by the moon's gravity, creating a spectacular tide. The seawater receded wildly. The sea level was rapidly dropping at a visible pace. In less than an hour, a wide road suddenly appeared in what was originally a vast expanse of water in the bay, connecting this continent with the main island about 10 kilometers away. The small island, which was originally independent, also became a peninsula connected to the mainland due to the appearance of this hidden path. This path was the transportation link connecting the main island and the continent. However, in a year, it was only passable for less than a month. At the turn of each month, when the 2 moons in the sky converged to form a ring, the tide would recede, revealing this hidden path beneath the water. This situation would last for 2 days, and then the hidden path would be submerged by the sea again. In the middle of each month, the water level in the bay would rise to its highest, then begin to recede again, until the beginning of the next month, when the hidden path would reappear for 2 days. In a year of 14 months, this path would appear for 28 days. The islanders of the main island officially used this path to travel to the grasslands to conduct trade. Of course, they could also build bamboo rafts and float across. The narrowest part of the bay was only about 10 kilometers, so floating across was not a problem at all. However, the large number of livestock they traded for from the grasslands could not be transported back by bamboo rafts, so they could only use that path that appeared once a month. The hidden path. The next morning, as dawn was just breaking, the submerged path had already emerged more than 1 meter from the water. The leading caravan then began to set foot on this path home. They had been away for several months, and at this point, they were eager to return home. However, the path was not easy to traverse. The ground was full of pitted and uneven reefs, and covered with shells from marine animals and algae. It was extremely wet and slippery. They could only cautiously drive their cattle and horses forward, for fear of accidentally spraining an ankle. If their cattle and horses were injured, they would be of no use. They were still counting on these animals to plow the fields back home. The group walked from dawn until noon before finally reaching the road's end on the opposite bank. They then rode horses for about 2 hours before finally returning to their tribe, the new tribe, also known as the 3 Gold Tribe, named for its abundant production of 3 golds, which they refer to as white gold, yellow gold, and red gold. If we were to use your terminology, that would be silver, gold, and purple-red copper. The main island is not small in area, roughly the size of Taiwan province, and is shaped like a long loaf of bread. Its length runs from southeast to northwest. The northwest end is where the submerged path connects to the mainland, and is also the new tribe's sphere of influence. There is not just one tribe on the island, the new tribe, but rather it is jointly organized by 6 large tribes. The island's population is nearly 80,000. The new tribe alone has a population of around 30,000, firmly occupying the dominant top position. Of the remaining 5 tribes, the largest has just over 10,000 people, and the smallest only 6 to 7,000. All 5 tribes are subsidiary tribes of the new tribe. They can also be considered vassal tribes. The fact that they all follow the new tribe's lead also has its reasons. The new tribe originally occupied the dominant northwest section of the main island. This area is not only connected to the mainland, allowing for external trade, but also all the important resources of the entire main island are managed in its northwest section. As for appearing in the same frame, that goes without saying. Most importantly, the main island's freshwater source is also at this northwest end. Therefore, whoever controls the water source is equivalent to controlling the entire main island. The new tribe has a large population, its territory solely dominates one end of the main island, and it also controls the source of the island's only freshwater river. Can also refine metals itself. Metals can also be obtained from the mainland through trade. The main island does not have cattle and horses of its own, so the remaining 5 tribes, who want to acquire metal farm tools or livestock for plowing, can only acquire them from the new tribe. Furthermore, with the new tribe's large population, basically whatever the new tribe says goes. No one dares to offend them. These islanders live by cultivating corn and soybeans. Most of their dwellings are bamboo stilt houses, with people living upstairs and pigs raised downstairs. Pigs are creatures native to the main island, and have been domesticated by the islanders into livestock. The remaining cattle and horses can only be obtained from the mainland. The main island also has native sheep, but they are black-haired mountain goats. Currently, there are some woolly sheep which were also acquired from the grasslands. However, the number of woolly sheep exchanged now is already small, as woolly sheep reproduce quickly. Furthermore, they have large amounts of corn each year, with stalks used as feed. Therefore, on the main island, woolly sheep are, apart from the native pigs, the livestock with the largest breeding scale. They have even bred hybrid varieties with the local mountain goats. It is also worth mentioning that the new tribe only sells cattle and sheep to the other 5 tribes. As for horses, they are all controlled by the new tribe itself. They also learned from the grassland people and have their own cavalry units. This is also how they are able to continuously maintain their ruling position. On the afternoon of May 1st, the 2nd month of summer, the new tribe's trading caravan finally returned to the central area of the tribe. That was a small town where their leader resided. The town is situated in a valley, also known as Clear Spring Valley, which is precisely where the entire main island's freshwater source is located. As far as the eye could see in the valley, there were bamboo buildings everywhere. The resident population reached over 4,000 people. As soon as the caravan entered the valley entrance, large groups of tribesmen immediately came out to welcome them. The day the caravan returned each time was also a day of celebration for the new tribe. After all, they always brought back good things. Who wouldn't be happy about that? But this time, because of the Han tribe incident, the caravan captain couldn't bring himself to be happy. He had important matters to report to the leader. As soon as the caravan captain entered the valley, he loudly announced, "I have important matters to report. Quickly take me to see the great leader." The tribesmen, who had originally been joyfully welcoming the caravan's return, hearing the caravan captain say this, scattered and made way. Someone immediately took him to the great leader. The caravan captain held a very high status in the tribe. The tribesmen dared not easily provoke him, but also held him in respect. After all, it was the caravan that risked danger to travel to places so far from the tribe, and brought back so many good things for them. The new tribe's leadership structure was similar to other tribes. The great leader was the chief, and also the leader of the main island's 6 great tribes. Below the leader was a council of elders, consisting of 10 great elders. These were the elders in charge of refining the 3 metals, gold, silver, and copper, totaling 3 elders, the elders in charge of corn and soybean cultivation, the grain bean elders, 2 elders, the livestock elder in charge of livestock breeding, the construction elder in charge of construction and building, and the tools elder of the technology R&D department, the military elder commanding all warriors, and the trade elder managing external trade. The new tribe has a clear division of labor for its various tasks, and a distinct hierarchy. It indeed possesses the demeanor of a great tribe. The caravan captain's status was only below that of the elders. He reported directly to the trade elder. However, every time they returned from trade, they had to report the situation to the chief. This was also customary. Right within the valley, on a hillside at the highest point, stood a huge 2-story bamboo building. That was Tongling's residence. At this time, the new tribe chief was sitting upright on the attic's beam platform. In front of him was a small bamboo table. The new chief was holding a stick knife made from ground shells and diligently carving bamboo slips while leaning over the table. Just at this moment, a guard warrior from downstairs, with a hurried sound of footsteps, climbed up the stairs. He came to the beam platform, knelt on one knee, and clasped his fist. "Chief, the caravan that went out has returned from the grasslands. Their captain says he has important matters to report, and is currently outside requesting to see you." The new chief was especially happy to hear that the caravan had returned. He quickly put away the bamboo slips. "Quickly bring him to the first-floor hall." Immediately, the new chief quickly came to the first-floor hall. Beside the long bamboo table placed in the center, the caravan captain was already waiting. Seeing the chief come down from upstairs, the caravan captain quickly stood up, saluted, and said, "Chief, this time we brought back many cattle and horses from the grasslands. However, we also encountered some unusual circumstances. There's possibly a tribe even stronger than us, selling goods for cattle and sheep on the grasslands. I also managed to acquire some of the goods they were selling." The new chief's first reaction upon hearing this was curiosity. He was not the first chief of the new tribe, but having grown up, he had never heard of any other tribe being stronger than the new tribe. He quickly said, "A tribe even stronger than us? Quickly bring their goods over for me to see." The caravan captain stood up and shouted towards the door. Several caravan members, who had been waiting outside for a long time, quickly moved bundles, large and small, into the bamboo building. Soon, the long table in the hall was completely filled. Then they quickly withdrew. A dazzling array of Han tribe goods was piled up, making the new chief somewhat overwhelmed. From small items like teapots and teacups, to large items like water buckets and iron pots, the variety was very complete. And on them, without exception, all were stamped with great Han manufacture marks. The new chief picked up a white porcelain teacup with a lid, held it in his hand, admiringly observing it. The teacup's body was very thin, and its surface glaze was fine and delicate. With a face full of shock, he said, "This material, it should be pottery, right? But how did they manage to make them so exquisite? And these bowls were actually made to be exactly alike. Also, they actually have mosquitoes too." The trade captain continued, "It's not just these. They also make white salt, and it's purer than ours." As he spoke, he took from a red jar a handful of white salt. The new leader was surprised again. He quickly took the small jar. He pulled out a handful of white salt from it. He smelled it. There was no scent at all, and the granules were uniform, white and fine. It was indeed several grades better than their sea salt. The new tribe's sea salt, sometimes they could even pick out small, fingernail-sized crabs from it. The trade captain then introduced what he held. "Here are the refined tools they forged. I heard from those nomadic tribes, they call this ironware. This is an iron pair of scissors, very sharp, and this iron pot and iron spoon. They are their ultimate tools for cooking. Moreover, this iron is much harder than our 3 metals. I heard they also have weapons made of iron, but they don't sell them, so I haven't seen them." The captain then picked up the scissors again. He held them in his hand and demonstrated their use to the new leader. As the scissors opened and closed, they easily cut a strand of his own hair. This greatly astonished the new leader. "These scissors are truly amazing. But what is this thing used for? To cut hair? Do those sheep-herding tribes really need these scissors?" The trade captain explained, "This thing can cut anything, but its main purpose is for shearing sheep." The new leader was even more surprised. "Shearing sheep?" The trade captain affirmed, "Yes. They sell scissors to the nomadic tribes. Then they have them shear off all the sheep's wool, and then they buy all their wool back to make something called wool cloth. This is wool cloth made from sheep's wool. It's used to make clothes." "Leader, please look," the captain said as he introduced, and picked up the piece of wool cloth to show the leader. The new leader exclaimed, "My goodness! Wool can actually be made into something like this. So thin, so light, and so soft. It looks dense and airtight, yet it's very breathable. This is simply miraculous." As he spoke, The new leader brought the wool cloth close to his face. Feeling its softness, he gently shook it. Watching the wool cloth sway in the breeze, his face was full of disbelief. The trade captain then picked up a burlap sack and said, "This here is a bag they use to hold things. It's called a burlap sack. It's woven from a type of grass and is extremely sturdy. Can hold a lot of things." The new leader took the burlap sack and examined it carefully. He felt its coarse yet tough material. He nodded, "This thing is indeed good. It's really good for storing grain. But if only we could produce it in large quantities." After a series of demonstrations, the new leader was filled with curiosity and amazement towards these goods from the Han tribe. At the same time, he subtly sensed a threat. That they could even produce such exquisite and practical items, the tribe's strength must not be underestimated. The trade captain looked at the new leader's expression. He suggested, "Leader, I think we should convene the elders for a meeting. To study these things together. The other party's strength is probably not simple. We must make plans early." The new leader pondered for a moment. He felt that what the trade captain said was very true. He immediately ordered the elders to be summoned. The next day at noon, 10 elders gradually arrived. Everyone sat around the long table, looking at the Han tribe's goods displayed on it. All of them showed expressions of surprise. The new leader spoke first. "Elders, this time the trade caravan brought back these items from the grasslands. All of them are goods from a tribe called the Han tribe. According to the trade captain, the strength of this tribe might have already surpassed ours. I have gathered everyone here today to discuss together to see if we can replicate these items and how we should deal with this Han tribe." Elder Xiang was the first to speak. "I have carefully studied their white salt. It should be sea salt processed through a special method. However, we are still unclear about their processing method. And I believe this processing method must be time-consuming and labor-intensive. The cost is also not low." Elder Sanjin continued, "Regarding these iron tools, I have carefully examined them. They are very similar to the gray metal we previously tried to smelt. They are very similar. But smelting gray metal is extremely difficult. We still haven't found a suitable method to mass smelt it, let alone making it into practical tools and weapons. Moreover, we currently haven't found abundant reserves of high-quality gray metal or veins. The difficulty of replicating these iron tools is simply too high." Elder Qi picked up a wooden bucket. After careful observation, he said, "Elders, look, this bucket is exquisitely made. The wooden planks fit together perfectly. The surface is flat and smooth. I speculate they must have used sharp, iron tools to process the wood. And these white ceramics, the clay used is completely different from ours. It should be a special kind of clay. As for this wool cloth and burlap sack, it's clearly woven items. Perhaps it's woven from horse grass. We can try to find similar materials to replicate them. Although it will consume a lot of time and manpower, it's not impossible. But this wool cloth, we don't even know the tools and methods for making it, let alone replicating it. Without sharp scissors like theirs, we can't even collect wool in large quantities." Just as everyone was discussing, the trade captain suddenly remembered something. "Oh, leader, I also heard that this Han tribe has a kind of vehicle. With it, they can transport many people and goods. This kind of vehicle is much more convenient than transporting by animal. And the transport capacity is also large." As he spoke, the trade captain pulled out from his bosom a model of a vehicle carved from bamboo and placed it on the table. When the elders saw this model, their eyes immediately lit up. Elder Bing excitedly said, "If this thing can be made, it will be much more convenient for transporting supplies during war." Elder Zhu also nodded in agreement. "With this thing, we can also move building materials much more easily. The tribe's construction speed will definitely accelerate." The new leader looked at the vehicle model. His heart was also extremely excited. He immediately said to Elder Qi, "Elder Qi, you figure out a way to build this thing. All other elders must assist fully. Trade captain, you also stay and help. We must build this vehicle as quickly as possible." The trade captain looked troubled. He said, "Leader, I know nothing about making vehicles. Moreover, next month I still have to go to the grasslands for trade. In my opinion, why don't we find a way to buy a vehicle from the Han tribe and bring it back as a sample? That way it will be a bit easier to study." Elder Shang also agreed. What the trade captain says makes sense. We can exchange seeds with them. The Han tribe has a large population. Their demand for grain must be huge. Our corn can ripen in 3 months. Planted alternately with soybeans, we can harvest 2 seasons a year. They definitely need such high-yield seeds. Perhaps we can also use this opportunity to exchange for the method of making vehicles. The new leader thought for a moment and felt this idea was feasible. He then said, "All right, let's do that. Elder Xiang, next month you lead the team to the grasslands for trade. Bring more seeds. No matter what, you must trade for a vehicle and bring it back. Also try to trade for as many other good things as possible." Elder Xiang received the order. He guaranteed he would do his utmost. After the meeting, the elders each returned to prepare. The new tribe also, because of this mysterious Han tribe, began a series of actions and changes. And a contest between the two tribes seemed to be quietly unfolding. Just as the new tribe was holding an emergency elder council meeting, over at the Han tribe, you had just led your tribesmen back to Hanyang City from the new district. In your hand, you tightly clutched 5 precious seeds. They were one of the hopes for the tribe's future. Returning home, you planted these 5 seeds in your own yard. The reason for choosing this spot was simply that these 5 seeds were too precious, and few in number. There was no room for any mishap. You truly couldn't trust any other place. At home, there were only you and Xiaodai. Xiaodai was gentle by nature, and would never do anything to harm the seeds. This yard was the safest home for these 5 seeds. After planting the seeds, your thoughts quickly turned to the next prairie trade. Currently, the Han tribe's commercial situation had already changed. The once monopolized white rock and mischief goods businesses, due to the emergence of the new tribe, a competitor, had become difficult. However, it was fortunate that the fur and ironware businesses still remained firmly in your hands. This was an advantage the new tribe could not hope to achieve in the short term. After clarifying these thoughts, you immediately urged your tribesmen to further increase the production of furs and ironware to ensure competitiveness in the market. After 5 months of careful construction, Hanyang City's warehouse district and breeding grounds were finally completed smoothly. Looking at these 2 brand new areas, your heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. You then arranged for 200 slaves to begin building a 3-story school. They quickly got to work and soon began the excavation work. At the same time, you selected 2 of the newly built warehouses and converted them into textile factory workshops. This was done to centralize the management of the looms and thus achieve large-scale production. One of the workshops was designated as a fine spinning workshop, primarily responsible for combing slivers and spinning tools. The other was a manufacturing workshop, where flying shuttle looms were neatly arranged. Each warehouse space could accommodate 60 looms, 2 meters long and 2 meters wide. Each machine was operated by an artisan. In a day, one machine could produce 10 meters. Calculated this way, one workshop could produce 600 meters in a single day. Such a production speed was indeed satisfying. The textile industry was labor-intensive, but fortunately, the Han tribe now had ample population. After thousands of new people arrived, it was not difficult to assign 100 to 80 people to engage in textile work. After arranging the weaving matters, you then found Dazue and had him continue to organize the iron smelting work. The last time iron was smelted was in the cold winter. This time, after half a year of careful preparation, you had already stockpiled enough materials to smelt 3 batches of molten iron. However, what was concerning was that the tribe's iron ore reserves were almost depleted. Therefore, you planned that a month later, after the farming work in the new district was completed, you would assign 300 slaves from there to go to the salt lake to mine iron ore, to replenish the consumption of iron ore. Now, with the continuous increase in the tribe's population, the construction of the new city was also continuously progressing. The tribe's demand for iron was growing daily. Every household needed iron pots as well as various iron tools and weapons. At the same time, to maintain trade relations with the prairie, a certain amount of iron products needed to be stockpiled. After all, items like iron pots and scissors sold to the prairie also consumed a good deal of iron. Fortunately, Dazue and his team had already accumulated some iron smelting experience. This time, for iron smelting, you did not personally supervise, but instead shifted your attention to the carpentry group, instructing them to build 2-wheeled carriages. These were intended for sale to the nomadic tribes. The manufacturing process for these 2-wheeled carriages was relatively simple, mainly consisting of a pair of wheels, a chassis, and a wooden flatbed. Since you possessed wind-powered sawmills, production was also relatively convenient. Moreover, compared to 4-wheeled carts, 2-wheeled carts not only saved labor and materials, but also saved on metal parts. The cost was lower, and the cost-performance ratio was higher. Although these carts had a relatively smaller cargo capacity, from a business perspective, this allowed for selling more units. After arranging the major tasks of building carriages, weaving, and iron smelting, you then had the prairie wildmen brought back by Yofu form a new cavalry unit. The plan was to establish 2 cavalry units, totaling 76 people. Each person was equipped with 2 horses. The main task of this unit was to protect trade caravans and seize trade opportunities. To put it plainly, it was to drive the new tribe's caravans out of the market. The new unit was managed by Cavalry Commander Chai Duo, with several other prairie people assisting. You were quite confident in their abilities. After arranging these matters, you then went to attend to other affairs. The Han tribe's school building officially began construction. This was the first time in the tribe's history that such a tall building was constructed. The tribesmen had no relevant experience, so you had to personally supervise and guide them. Although in your previous life you hadn't studied professional knowledge of building construction, you had studied demolition. Both, to a certain extent, required understanding building structures and load-bearing structures. This school building was planned to use a brick concrete structure. For buildings of this structure, the foundation was particularly important. The school building's foundation was dug very deep. The wall-based trenches reached a depth of 4 meters, and at critical load-bearing points, 6-meter-deep tree wells were dug. In the tree wells, you placed limestone, charcoal, slag, clay, and crushed stone, then compacted them firmly. This mixture was like primitive concrete, very sturdy. Lime could kill plant roots and seeds. Charcoal and limestone could act as moisture barriers, while slag, crushed stone, and clay served to distribute weight and provide cohesion. The foundation was filled to a depth of 3 meters below the ground. The vertical shafts were filled with 3 meters of base material, and the wall bases with 1 meter. Then a 1 meter thick wall base was built using large blue bricks. On both sides of the wall base, lime, slag, and crushed stone were poured, filling the trench before backfilling with soil. The wall base was then built up 1 meter above ground. This way, the entire foundation reached a height of 4 meters and a thickness of 1 meter. It was not only waterproof, earthquake-resistant, and pressure-reducing, but also capable of steadily bearing the building's main weight. What was even more surprising was that 200 people only took 10 days to complete the excavation work for the foundation. The speed was faster than you had anticipated. The school building was a brick concrete structure, mainly using brick, wood, and tiles as building materials. The walls and columns were constructed with blue bricks, with a sawn timber framework. Main beams and secondary beams were laid, with thick wooden planks placed on top as floorboards. The building's main support relied on the beams. The building was 16 meters wide, 35 meters long, and 3 stories high. Compared to ancient multi-deck warships, it was indeed just a small structure. But for your Han tribe, it was already a remarkable construction project. The floorboards were very sturdy, allowing people to jump on them without issue. However, considering the actual usage requirements, classrooms were mainly for lessons, while physical education classes were arranged to be held outdoors. At the school building construction site, many people were busy working. The slaves also actively cooperated, as they had previously built warehouses and had some experience. However, there was a problem at the construction site. There were many children who had come from the Fire tribe, and little Nan still had 700 or 800 of them. Most of them were around 5 or 6 years old. They had no work to do, nor did they have suitable toys to play with. So they ran around everywhere on the construction site. This not only affected the construction progress but also posed significant safety hazards. You observed for a while, realizing it was because they had nothing to play with that they were like this. So you called out to a child secretly playing with mud and told him to gather his friends in the square, telling them you were going to teach everyone something fun to play. The child was very happy after hearing this and immediately ran off to call people. You prepared some toys for the children in advance, making beanbags and jump ropes. Although these toys were simple to make and inexpensive, they could bring endless joy to the children. Soon, hundreds of children gathered in the square. You carried a basket of beanbags, followed by a few people helping to carry ropes. You explained in detail to the children how to play with the beanbags. After the children watched your demonstration, all showed great interest and eagerly took beanbags to start playing. Many children played beanbag toss, and soon there weren't enough beanbags to go around. So you then taught the children who didn't get beanbags to play group jump rope, with 2 people swinging the rope, while other children lined up to jump in one by one. The children had a great time playing, and the square was filled with laughter and joy. The adults, seeing how happy the children were, also became happy. Couldn't help but think that, Adults also need some recreational activities to relax their bodies and minds. So you thought of promoting football. Football itself originated in China's V dynasty, where it was called kuju. It is not only cheap to make, but also helps to exercise the body, and can even be used for military training. In addition, board games are also a good choice. Playing chess not only allows people to relax, but also trains their thinking ability, and is also beneficial for the development of the tribe. Therefore, you gathered pregnant women and women responsible for childcare, and asked them to help make footballs, sewn from animal hides, filled with rice husks and hemp fibers. The materials could be scraps from leather armor. At the same time, 2 apprentices were transferred from the carpentry group, and asked them to create miracles. Soon, the tribe had produced over 40 footballs. 30 were distributed to the children. The rest were given to the cavalry and merchant teams. Afterward, on the grassland outside the west gate, a football field was measured out. Goals were set up and boundary lines were drawn. Then the rules of football were explained to everyone. They were all very interested in this new sport, and actively participated. However, just as everyone was immersed in joy, Yu Ye's strategy meeting. News sent by the reconnaissance team via Eagle Messenger. They received instructions for planning and reconnaissance. The mission concerning the cannibals. The roads equipped this time were very useful, could shoot more arrows than traditional bows and arrows, and was labor-saving and easy to aim. They set out from the back mountains north of Hanyang City, passed through valleys, crossed grasslands, following the traces left by the cannibals, and chased them all the way to the upper reaches of the river. Many places in the upper reaches were uninhabited by tribes, only some abandoned settlements, and these places had all suffered severe damage. They continued northward, passed through mountains and arrived at a plain. There they saw alpacas, Big Horn Road and other caves. They might even have seen plateau wild areas. However, they lost the cannibals' tracks. But they did not give up, and continued searching. Eventually, they discovered the source of the river. Turned out that the small river outside the city was just a branch of a larger river. The main river upstream was 50 meters wide, but the water was not deep at all, so people could at least pass through. At the intersection of the Great River's branch, they encountered a tribal alliance. This alliance was not the cannibal tribe of Yui. They communicated with this tribal alliance, and learned that they were familiar with the situation of the cannibals. Yui gave them some scornful looks. They warmly received Yui and their foreign guests. This tribal alliance was large, with about 2,000 to 3,000 people, composed of over a dozen small tribes. They did not cultivate crops, but were skilled at taming wild beasts. Men, women, old, and young were all skilled in their art. This was so that when danger was encountered, they could quickly escape. There were elders in the tribe, who passed down the tribe's knowledge, and also had a pictorial, myth or legend passed down in form. Other alliances nearby also knew this legend. The elders gave to Yui. They looked at the pictures carved on stone tablets, and told the story. The first picture depicted in the valley, the birth of an ape. This ape, after growing up, was twice as tall as its peers. The second picture shows the test subject, because of its huge size, did not have enough food, and began to eat its own kind. Some early humans therefore migrated, and performed a sacrifice before leaving. Then the mountain collapsed. Stones turned into water, forming rivers. The ape men then began to migrate along the rivers. The third picture showed that the migrating people multiplied into many tribes, and the giant apes in the valley were also constantly multiplying. The giant apes walked out of the valley to capture people, eat a portion, take some away to live and hunt together. The fourth image shows Juyuan leading the merged people, continuing to capture people, eating people. After the cannibals gradually grew stronger, they returned to the snow mountain. The fifth image shows Xianxia's people unable to withstand the cannibals' attacks, and formed a tribal alliance. This aligns with the situation where the Han tribe gathered to resist the cannibals. The sixth image, however, is very strange. It's a totem of a man riding a venom-tusked elephant. This man wears something on his head, observing us, and is extremely similar to you. Moreover, the image on the totem and the Chinese character on the Han tribe's flag are also very similar. The venom-tusked elephant is precisely your mount, Huishan. This makes you feel extremely shocked. The seventh image shows you riding the venom-tusked elephant, uniting many tribes, and the population growing larger and larger. The eighth image shows you leading your tribal people, arriving at the snow mountain where the giants reside, and winning the war. The scene ends here. Many events in this prophecy have already been verified in reality. Currently, only the part where you haven't gone to the snow mountain to fight a decisive battle with the cannibals. This event has not yet occurred. You ponder. This tribal alliance knows about this prophecy, but hasn't united the various tribes themselves. This might be because primitive people primarily rely on hunting and gathering for sustenance. Food resources are limited, making it impossible to accommodate multiple tribes living together. However, you promoted farming and animal husbandry techniques in the Han tribe, solving the food problem. Therefore, you have the ability to become a leader. Yui is also very superstitious about this prophecy. He is unsure whether he should continue scouting the cannibal's lair or do something else. So he wrote a letter to you asking for advice. You believe this is a rare good opportunity. If the tribal alliance believes this prophecy, it will prove that you are the leader from the prophecy. They are very likely to join the Han tribe. Therefore, you plan to admit that you are the person from the prophecy. Use this prophecy to build momentum and publicity, and then ascend the throne and establish a nation. Currently, the Han tribe is developing rapidly. Its population has already exceeded 10,000, and 2 cities have been established. If it continues to develop as a tribe, it will face many management problems. Therefore, establishing a nation is very necessary. By establishing a nation, a comprehensive management system can be built. This holds significant importance for the future development of the tribe. You wrote back to Yui, telling him to reassign some members from the reconnaissance team, to invite the leadership of the tribal alliance to Hanyang City, and also bring the polished prophecy stone tablet. If he can contact other alliances that believe this prophecy, bring their leaders along as well. Tell them this is a summons from the Son of Heaven. Meanwhile, Yui led the remaining cannibals. Continue to scout the cannibal's lair, to verify whether the prophecy's details about the cannibal's lair, the snow mountain and the source of the river, are true. After the letter was sent, you began to carefully sort out the Han tribe's development strategy, and started preparing for the establishment of a nation, knowing full well that the feudal system of the Zhou dynasty had many drawbacks. It was not advisable, so you decided to learn from Qin Shi Huang and implement a centralized system. Currently, the Han tribe's population is relatively small, so the administrative hierarchy can be set up more simply. The smallest administrative unit is the city. Each city will have a city lord for management. Below the city are villages. In the future, cities will be built in suitable farming areas to serve as strongholds connecting cities. Villages will be established along the routes as relay stations. In this way, communication and connection between towns and cities can be strengthened, driving the development of surrounding areas. However, during the development process, the safety of the villages must be ensured. This will require the strength of the towns and cities to maintain. This development model is somewhat like militarized expansion. Building cities is like establishing garrison fortresses. Multiple fortresses connected together form enclosed territories. Clear enemies and beasts within the territory. Then dispatch population to build village roads. Develop resources. In inland towns, leave a small number of security personnel. Transfer the main military force to the border defense line to form border guards, responsible for patrolling the border. After meeting border defense needs, then draw out field troops. Continue to build cities outside the national border. Gradually expand the national territory. When the national territory expands to a certain extent, then integrate. Form several towns into a line. Several counties form a commandery. Several commanderies form a province. Currently, the Han tribe only has 2 cities. Therefore, we must develop steadily, one step at a time. To summarize, the development policy of the Han tribe is: do things down to earth. Develop steadily. Rely on hard work to escape poverty and become rich. Bring peace and prosperity through trade. On the other side, the giant baby finally arrived at its destination after 2 days of long-distance flight. Coincidentally, it happened to meet another giant baby returning with a small deer. You also took the items brought by the giant baby. Then, for the tribe, the leaders of the alliance read the contents of the letter and displayed the Han tribe's footprint, exquisite judges and hairpins. He explained in detail that your mount is a fanged great hero, and mentioned that surrounding tribes joined the Han tribe, and a series of prophecies are gradually coming true. The leaders were very shocked to hear Yui's narration and see these items. Their faces showed expressions of disbelief. Some of them expressed doubt about what Yui said, believing that it might all be a coincidence. Seeing this, Yui calmly explained. He pointed out the Chinese characters on the footprint, and the similarity to the tribal totem, emphasizing that the judge and the hairpin were unique items invented by you. He also proudly said that you created Chinese characters. These Chinese characters can represent anything in the world. We are now using Chinese characters to write letters and communicate. Everyone looked curiously at the Chinese characters on the animal skin, and felt the unique charm and powerful expressiveness of Chinese characters, gradually believing in your extraordinary nature. Finally, they agreed to go to Hanyang City to investigate, to see this legendary son of destiny with their own eyes. Yui did not intend to go back with them. Instead, he planned to continue deeper into the snow mountain, to find the cannibal tribe. A burly man admired Yui's courage. The tribe immediately expressed that they were willing to send people to treat the few people. Yui was overjoyed. He knew that with guides familiar with the route, he could avoid many detours and complete the important task assigned by the leader more quickly. The next day, Yui divided the 12-person team. 2 people were responsible for leading the tribal alliance delegation back to the tribe. One of them was a member of the Ing tribe. He could maintain contact using the Azuka giant eagle. The other was skilled in using a compass and was responsible for leading the way. They also had to take a detour to the Highland Plain area to find a tribal alliance that was good at encirclement and hunting, and believed in the prophecy of the Shurban. This alliance was relatively close, convenient for future contact, and Yui's own cannibal squad added 3 indigenous elephant paths. This gave them more confidence in finding the enemy's lair. At the same time, in the distant Hanyang City, the second season of rice cultivation was about to enter the transplanting season. The tender green seedlings were already about a foot tall. The construction progress of the teaching building slowed down, because most of the tribesmen went to participate in the transplanting work. Only the foreman was left to supervise the slaves to continue digging, and your efforts finally yielded a pleasing promise. The 5 seeds planted at home have sprouted. 2 of them are soybeans. 3 of them are corn. Corn, as a staple food with great potential, can mature in just 3 months when planted in summer. Its maturation period is 10 days shorter than that of rice. 10 days shorter than the maturation period of rice. There was also the wheat sown in spring. It took 5 months to finally bring in the harvest. During spring plowing, you were on the east bank. You planted 5 mu of wheat in the newly reclaimed area. To discover the most suitable planting density, you specifically separated these plots of land and set up different row spacing and densities. Unexpectedly, the wheat from these 5 mu of land surprisingly yielded 3 varieties. One type had very long awns, similar to the original variety Yufu had brought. Another type had shorter awns, and a third type had no awns. You began selecting seeds for the next batch of wheat, carefully selecting individual plants with many heads and robust wheat as mother plants. After seed selection was complete, harvesting began, and the 3 varieties were stored separately. Because an experiment was needed to distinguish between barley and wheat, you arranged for someone to fetch 3 gene of each type of wheat and sent it to the mill to be ground into flour. You, yourself, went to prepare the ingredients for fermenting the flour. Without honey, you had already sent someone to collect syrup from the man-eating tree. With Lu Xiaodai, you brought back the ground flour. She curiously asked why you wanted to grind it. You patiently explained, wheat requires little water, and is suitable for planting in drylands. Moreover, it can be made into many delicious foods. When kneading the dough, you added the collected syrup. After preparing the 3 dough balls, you covered them with animal hides and waited for them to ferment. After a long wait, you nervously lifted the animal hides to check the fermentation of the dough. The dough in the first basin had expanded 2 or 3 times. Its surface was covered with small air holes. This was the wheat with medium-length awns, thus confirming it was wheat. The dough in the second basin had barely risen. This was the wheat with the longest awns. It was judged to be highland barley. The dough in the third basin also fermented well. This was the wheat without awns. It was also wheat but different from the first type. One had a loose texture, the other was relatively firm, corresponding to high-gluten flour and low-gluten flour, respectively. High-gluten flour is suitable for making dumpling wrappers and noodles, while low-gluten flour is suitable for making cakes and bread. After people learned the news of the successful flour fermentation, they came one after another wanting to taste the novelty. However, the amount of fermented dough was small, simply not enough to share with everyone. You also used the highland barley dough to make egg-fried noodles. After everyone tasted it, they all found it very exciting. Sitting together in a circle, they enthusiastically discussed various ways to eat wheat. Watching this scene, you were very happy inside, knowing deeply the immense potential of wheat. It could not only make the tribe's food reserves more abundant, but also allow for crop rotation with rice, thereby increasing food production. It was at this time that the trade caravan of the new tribe set off majestically. 120 people with 300 cattle and horses came to trade with the Han tribe. On the Han tribe's side, the trade caravan led by Lu Fu had an even more spectacular lineup. This caravan was led by a grassland barbarian. It was equipped with 2 units totaling 76 cavalry. They were all elite forces. Each person was equipped with 3 war horses, wearing full body armor, and their matching horse armor was also very fine. The heavy cavalry held socket bayonets. Their armor had been improved. The helmets also had new designs, and were also equipped with metal masks. In the past month or so, the Han tribe produced over 400 rolls of undyed wool fabric. This fabric was light and thin, suitable for wearing in spring, summer, and autumn, becoming the main product for foreign trade. The Han tribe processed wool into fabric. The difference between the selling price and the cost was significant. The profit was considerable. Relying on the wool industry, the tribe's life significantly improved. This trade caravan brought nearly 300 horses, a dozen cattle, 48 carts, 76 heavy cavalry, 80 caravan members, and various abundant goods. They traveled south from Xiaohao and the East Bank for trade. You also had Yufu during the southward journey explore to the south to look for tribes with bamboo. Negotiate or drive them away based on the actual situation. When the caravan departed, the farmland in Jincheng district had already been cultivated. The ditches had also been dug. Dashu led the crowd, heading to the salt lake to mine magnetite. Meanwhile, south of Hanyang City, Zhu, the leader of the Lu tribe, was frowning with worry. Previously, the spotted pigs raised by his tribe could fetch a good price. But now that the Han tribe had cattle and sheep, the price of spotted pigs had depreciated significantly. Even if he actively sought buyers, he wouldn't dare to ask for a high price in exchange. Bai Yan then went to a neighboring tribe to inquire about the situation, but found that the neighboring tribe was moving. Only after asking did he learn that the neighboring tribe had previously purchased the Han tribe's white rock, and felt the price was too expensive. Later, when the Han tribe started building settlements, they needed a large workforce to build houses and store food. So they began recruiting people. Children could tend to livestock, women could be responsible for cooking and caring for children, and men would do heavy labor, in exchange for white rock. According to the tribal leader, seeing that the lives of those who joined the Han tribe were getting better and better, he conceived the idea of leading his clansmen to join the Han tribe. He also said that after joining, the original tribe could become a vassal. Clansmen could also find each other by name. Neighbor. The elder suggested sending people to work for the Han tribe to exchange for white rock and told him, as long as they followed the dirt road with cart tracks in the mountains, they would be able to reach it. After Zhu returned to the tribe, he began to seriously consider this proposal. In the 3rd month of summer, based on Ye's reconnaissance, the survey team was about to arrive at the 10-person group's territory. The 2 people who had previously split off successfully made contact with the Highland Grassland Hunting Tribe Alliance and formed an alliance, and persuaded them to visit the Han tribe as guests. The caravan led by Yufu, on its way south to the grasslands, encountered many labor teams. And the new tribe's caravan was also moving towards the grasslands. It was highly probable they would meet en route. You were not worried about this, believing that the caravan's excellent equipment was sufficient to deal with any potential trouble. Even if they encountered danger, they could safely escape back. In June, the rice cultivation work in the new city district was successfully completed. The yield of this season ensured that everyone no longer worried about starvation. Next, they would begin preparing houses and firewood for winter. The new city district had a large population, and everyone was full of confidence in building houses. The teaching building in Hanyang City was undergoing its topping-out work. This teaching building used green brick construction, with spacious corridors, bright windows, and sturdy doors. The floorboards were constructed from thick timber beams. Later, ceramic tiles were also installed. Previously, windows were wooden lattices covered with curved animal hides. In summer, it was stuffy and hot. Now the clansmen were trying a new method, planning to use paper for window panes. To realize this idea, they also needed to make paper and manufacture pens to solve the tribe's learning and hygiene problems. The foundation work was carried out swiftly and decisively. After arranging the relevant matters for the teaching building and weaving mill, he then went to the new city district to begin papermaking. Taking several carpenters, he found a newly built residence in the new city district to settle in. He had the carpenters build furniture and the papermaking facility. For the necessary equipment, he also summoned Dashu and Shuda to allocate manpower and carts to collect tree pulp and for construction. The next day, 2 collection teams departed. Those collecting pulp felled tree trunks in the mountain forests and collected the pulp. The pulp was very viscous and needed to be diluted with water. You felt that the fiber strength of natural pulp was insufficient, so you planned to add wood to it, processing the remaining bark and hemp cloth, as well as the hemp fibers left after spinning. First, he had people put the bark and hemp fibers in the courtyard to boil them in a large pot on a simple built-up stove. In a square courtyard with sides 166 meters long, besides 5 main rooms, other places all became temporary papermaking workshops. In the workshops, there were stoves and large pots for the main ingredients, and also what was originally used for hulling rice, now used for pounding pulp material, a foot pedal mortar, as well as a large thatched shed. Under the shed, on a wooden frame, was a large water trough for papermaking. Next to it, there was also a table for placing paper. The people in the courtyard were boiling tree bark, hemp balls, and hemp stalks. Actually, both hemp stalks and rami stalks can be used for papermaking. This way, there would be no waste. These materials needed to be boiled for 1 or 2 days. During this time, you had people prepare thin straw mats for papermaking. They first split the reed grass and cut it into thin strips. After soaking in water, they boiled it for 1 hour to soften it. Then they took it out and dried it. After that, they started weaving mats. This was a meticulous job. It would take 2 days to complete. You couldn't stay idle for a moment. You had people build brick drying channels for paper. This was equipment used for drying paper. They stood the bricks on their sides, building low walls 5 or 6 centimeters thick. On the back of the wall, 40 centimeters apart, they built another thin wall of the same kind, forming parallel drying channels. Then they used a mixture of gypsum and kaolin to smooth the brick seams. Finally, by heating the channels with fire to harden them, the job was complete. When in use, firewood was lit in the middle to heat the wall surfaces. The dewatered paper was then pasted onto the walls to dry. The speed was extremely fast. Could be completed in a few seconds. One person could paste 2 sheets of paper simultaneously, operating alternately left and right. The efficiency was very high. It not only saved time and effort, but also saved wooden boards and drying space. It was not limited by weather conditions. 2 days later, all preparatory work yielded results. The mats were woven first, a total of 4 mats. Each mat was 90 centimeters long and 60 centimeters wide. The rough edges were enlarged according to the size of a double folio paper. Once the paper was made, the rough edges could be trimmed off. A double folio paper folded in half becomes a quad folio. Folded again, it becomes an octavo. A standard test paper size, folded again, becomes a sextodecimo. The size of a large exercise book can be folded according to actual needs. Cutting. Since this was the first time making paper, you didn't have the workers make overly large mats. You planned to make larger sizes once the workers mastered the technique. Currently, the main purpose was to test the feasibility of papermaking. After the mats were made, wooden frames for placing the mats were also made. In the afternoon, the drying channels/fire walls for paper were also successfully completed. After polishing, they could be put into use. The next morning, the boiling materials finally stopped heating. When scooped out, they had turned white and become soft and mushy. But they still needed to be mixed with natural pulp and pounded, until they became cotton-like fibers, to be made into pulp for papermaking and kept for use. One person took turns pounding. It was completed in half a day. After all, this was just the experimental stage. Not much material was needed. In the afternoon, papermaking officially began. You took the lead in demonstrating papermaking. Although you had no actual papermaking experience, you understood some key points to note. For example, the pulp needed to be stirred first to ensure uniform density. After scooping the pulp onto the wooden frame had to be tilted to level the pulp. Then the mat was removed, and the paper was spread on the draining table. After that, it was a continuous repetition of the steps of scooping paper and spreading paper. You first scooped dozens of sheets, and after gradually mastering the technique, you handed it over to others to improve work efficiency. The work of papermaking could only be mastered through long-term practice. There were no shortcuts. Currently, it could only rely on manual operation. The wooden frame was relatively large. It could accommodate 2 people working together. After teaching the techniques, you were responsible for guiding them from the side. The 2 papermakers learned very diligently. They worked hard to level the pulp, spreading the paper as quickly as possible while ensuring quality. The 3 of them together made about 200 sheets of paper. Stacking these papers together, it could be seen that the pulp was very finely beaten, and the fibers were not broken. The fibers also did not break. The paper sheets were relatively uniform overall. However, when comparing over 100 sheets together, it was still noticeable that some were thicker and some were thinner. This was because the total amount of pulp scooped each time varied. You promptly reminded the 2 of them. They also paid attention to making improvements. After 4 hours of effort, water and pulp were added promptly when they ran low. In the end, a total of over 600 sheets of paper were produced. As their proficiency increased, the speed of papermaking became faster and faster. From an initial 2 minutes per sheet to later 1 minute per sheet, and then 3 sheets in 2 minutes. The quality of the paper also got better and better. The thickness was largely consistent. 600 sheets of wet paper stacked together had a thickness as wide as a palm. The water content was very high and it wasn't very flat. There were also faint patterns from the straw mat on them. However, these problems could all be solved by pressing them flat and dewatering. The method for dewatering was very simple. Place a wooden board on the paper stack, then press with a heavy object, or apply pressure by twisting ropes with a wooden stick. Some worried that they would just stick together. In fact, this worry was unnecessary, because the paper fibers were very firmly connected in the horizontal direction. In the vertical direction, they became flat due to water control and rinsing. Therefore, there would be no sticking. When pressed until no more water came out, the original 10 centimeter thick wet paper was only 4 centimeters thick. The imprints of the straw mat also disappeared. The paper became flat. It looked like yellowish-white thick cardboard. The final step was to stick the dewatered paper onto my wall to dry. You also had the carpenter make a kind of board-like object, a paper-sticking tool wrapped with shaved antelope hide for smoothing. You demonstrated first. He lit a fire in the passage to heat the wall surface. Then he peeled off a wet sheet of paper, holding one corner with one hand and dragging it with the tool in the other hand. He stuck the paper to the wall and smoothed it flat, just like putting up a slogan. Dashu and Shuda originally didn't have much interest in paper. But after hearing you say that paper was crucial for the tribe's development, they began to take it seriously. You mentioned that paper could be used to cover windows. After seeing it, they felt it could only let light through. Shuda guessed that you wanted to use paper to exchange for animal hides to make clothes. Dashu, on the other hand, thought paper wasn't strong enough and was afraid of water. You explained that brushing paper with tongue oil could make it waterproof. Moreover, paper brushed with tongue oil would be more translucent. The 2 experimented according to your method. It was indeed so. Shuda then curiously asked, "What other uses does paper have?" You replied that paper could be used for writing. Chinese characters were very important. They could record and transmit information. Paper and pens were lightweight and could be made by themselves. Animal hides, however, were limited in quantity. A large amount of messages could be written and transmitted at once. Shuda felt that writing didn't have much use. Dashu, however, pondered deeply about the profound effects of combining paper and Chinese characters. He thought that this could better preserve the tribe's memories. After drying, out of 600 sheets of paper, over 570 remained intact. The defective products were due to problems occurring during the paper sticking or wall brushing process. You were very satisfied with being able to successfully make finished products. After the papermaking experiment succeeded, the workshop began to work overtime to produce. Over 1,000 sheets of paper could be produced in a day. But to meet the demand for renovating the doors and windows of Hanyang City, it would still take some time. After you had some free time, you started new research. Paper had already been successfully made. At the current production rate, about a week's time would be enough. The flawlessly collected raw materials still had a surplus. So paper making would continue. After having paper, you began to consider which type of pen to promote. Fountain pens and ballpoint pens were not feasible at this stage. Currently, what could be made were European quill pens, 5-point Chinese brushes, and pencils. Because brushes used a lot of paper for writing large characters, brushes were ruled out. So, quill pens and pencils were left as suitable for writing small characters. However, materials for quill pens were scarce. Most large feathers of the Han tribe were used for making tools. Moreover, quill pens are consumables. The pen tips need frequent sharpening. It's not very cost-effective. The main materials for pencils are wood, clay, and graphite. Wood and clay are relatively common in the tribe. Although graphite is not found locally, you had acquired it before. And after the Shui tribe was incorporated into the Han tribe, they gained control of graphite and borax production sites. Therefore, you summoned Shuda and Chen Shou from the Shui tribe and had them lead people to mine, collecting graphite and borax. Shuda also arranged for the household department to prepare tools and food, and to bring carrier eagles for message delivery. The raw materials for pencils were now secured. You also wanted to equip official writing with suitable pens. Because pencil marks are easily erased, they are not suitable for recording important documents. You considered using pens that write with ink. Brushes are not very durable, so you still had to choose calligraphy brushes. You can write with a calligraphy brush, though your skill is average. But in modern times, there is a type of soft nib fountain pen that combines the characteristics of a fountain pen and a calligraphy brush. Its nib is fine and firm, capable of writing small regular script. This meets the need for saving paper. However, you didn't expect to be able to produce Chu Mo's soft nib fountain pen. You planned to first make ordinary small regular script brushes to be used with ink. Large brushes would only be for children's practice. Materials for making calligraphy brushes were not lacking in the Han tribe. The pen shafts could be made from the sharp thorns of the hanging thorn identification technique. Previously, these thorns were cut down and burned as firewood. Now, they were perfect for making pen shafts. Brush heads come in goat hair, wolf hair, and pointed hair varieties. You possessed wolf pelts from winter, and the wolf fur was very full, enough to make many calligraphy brushes. While you were thinking about making calligraphy brushes, you were also handling tribal affairs. During a summer midday break, you suddenly received good news. When you were once searching for wild rice in the swamp, you encountered Tribe Zero. You taught the people of Tribe Zero how to make rafts. Since then, the people of Tribe Zero became enthusiastic about making rafts. Later, they discovered bamboo in the swamp, and their living standards greatly improved. They could pole their rafts to more distant places, collecting water chestnuts, and their harvests grew larger and larger. Moreover, they also used bamboo to make various weapons, such as bamboo spears, bamboo arrows, bamboo bows, bamboo arrows, harpoons, and bamboo baskets. They gained stronger hunting and defensive capabilities, and subsequently conquered several small neighboring tribes. Their tribal population increased to over 1,000, making them the overlords of the swamp region. Tribe Zero attributed their strength to you. In their hearts, you were like a deity. They recalled a plant you had taken with you long ago, and guessed that this plant must have a special use. So they began searching everywhere. Eventually, they found rice. Initially, they tried various ways of eating it, but none were satisfactory. Until one day, someone put rice and fish into a bamboo tube to cook, and unexpectedly cooked a delicious bamboo tube fish porridge. From then on, they discovered the unique appeal of rice. Afterward, through continuous experimentation, they found that rice, regardless of how it was cooked, was edible. Especially dry cooked rice, which became the tribe's staple food. They found more wild rice in the swamp. Although they had not yet mastered cultivation techniques, they had already embarked on the path of agriculture. Han Tribe New City. The river to the east of the district was connected to the swamp's water system. Tribe Zero had long ago discovered that people lived here. Initially, the population here was small, and Tribe Zero even considered annexing this place. But as the population gradually increased, they not only built city walls, but also tamed a large number of wild beasts. Tribe Zero then dared not act rashly. They could only begin frequent reconnaissance. They saw the Han tribe diverting river water to turn the land, flood the land, and sow seeds. Later, they transplanted plants. And these plants grew extremely fast. The Ling tribe, after careful analysis, discovered that these plants were very similar to their rice. From this, they guessed that this might be the tribe you belong to. The high-ranking members of the Ling tribe immediately decided to send a few people who had seen you before to your tribe to take a look. At this time, Ling Chao, with a few tribesmen, arrived at the opposite bank of the Hanbo River. They selected 5 people. When there was no one by the river, they paddled a bamboo raft towards the opposite bank. However, just as they were about to land, they were discovered by the soldiers at the city gate. Da Shu, who was leading the team, sent a soldier on a small horse over. He also instructed them to try and capture them alive. If the other party didn't resist, they should be brought to him. The people from the Ling tribe in the middle of the river saw soldiers approaching with weapons. They were extremely scared. A man said that if they landed, they would definitely be caught. The mission would not be completed. Ling Chao said he would swim over first. The others should wait here. If he wasn't killed, then the others could come over. Because Ling Chao was the first person in the tribe to learn how to make rafts. He thought you knew him and his chances of survival would be greater. Ling Chao swam to the shore. As soon as he stood up, he was pointed at by a dozen long spears. He quickly gestured, saying he had no ill intentions. He also took out a large, dark water chestnut that looked like a bull's head, and asked the soldiers to give it to the chief. Although the soldiers didn't understand his words, they understood his meaning. So they took the water chestnut and led him towards the city gate. The district chief brought Ling Chao to the city gate. Da Shu looked at him, guessing that this woman might know someone. So he instructed the soldiers not to make things difficult for Ling Chao, and then he went into the city to find you. Ling Chao looked around curiously, finding everything here very novel. Things like wooden stools and white containers with patterns were exquisitely made. Da Shu found you, handed the water chestnut to you, and said that a few people were sitting on bamboo that could float on water, coming from the other side of the river. That woman asked to give this thing to the chief. You recognized it as a water chestnut at a glance. You recalled that before, when you went to the wetlands east of Babao Mountain to look for rice, you had encountered a tribe that gathered water chestnuts. You had also taught them how to make wooden rafts. You guessed that people from this tribe had come looking for you. Da Shu asked if you wanted to see that woman. You said yes to see her. Although water chestnuts were not very useful to the Han tribe, the Ling tribe could find bamboo, which was something you had always wanted to find. If you could trade with the Ling tribe or have them join the Han tribe, then you would have bamboo for a long time. You and Da Shu came outside the city. Ling Chao saw you, and excitedly knelt down quickly, thanking you for teaching them how to make rafts. You asked the soldiers to help Ling Chao up, and told him with gestures that if he had companions, they should also come over. You would not harm them. Ling Chao thought for a moment, and decided to call the remaining 4 people ashore. The 4 people saw Ling Chao and the tribal chief connect. They were very happy and quickly paddled their rafts over, following Ling Chao to the city gate. You saw the bamboo weapons of the Ling tribe members, confirming that they had bamboo. You were very excited. Ling Chao expressed to you that they had learned how to make rafts according to your guidance, and also knew about edible plants. But they didn't know how to control the growth of plants, and could only gather wild grass seeds to eat. They wanted you to teach them. You said you could teach them, but it would require an exchange of goods. For example, the bamboo they used to make weapons. The Han tribe would also exchange their own goods. If they agreed, you would send people to teach them how to grow rice. After saying this, you asked Da Shu to bring samples of the Han tribe's goods. There was white clay pottery, iron pots and iron spoons, farming tools, etc. Ling Chao and a few others tasted the white clay, and then looked at these items. Finally, they said they only wanted the white clay and farming tools. They also wanted the Han tribe people's clothes and many animal skins. As soon as you heard this, you understood that the Ling tribe lived in wetlands. Large herbivores were scarce, and used cloth scraps and animal skins to get through winter. But it was too much of a loss to exchange so many things for bamboo. A different condition was needed. You thought that the wetlands, with abundant water, were suitable for raising ducks. And duck feathers can provide insight. Duck eggs and duck meat could also be eaten. Moreover, ducks were easy to raise, suitable for promotion in the Ling tribe. So you told Ling Chao that cloth and animal skins could be given, but not just in exchange for bamboo. They had to exchange them for processed bamboo products such as sleeping mats, bamboo hats, bamboo baskets, pen holders, steamers, and so on. Ling Chao didn't understand what bamboo products were. You said you would send people to teach them. However, their methods might not be kept secret. You would arrange for people to send them back. After speaking, you had the soldiers carry back the bamboo rafts a shovel turns into individual bamboo stalks, then arranged for artisans to teach in the city the Ling tribe people how to make bamboo products. 5 people from the Ling tribe were left behind. During these days, they learned bamboo weaving techniques. They also learned many things about the Han tribe, such as goods, living habits, how to eat rice, and so on. You also had the Cha tribe elder teach them how to farm, explaining the rice growing process. At the same time, you told Ling Chao about the benefits and methods of raising ducks. Ling Chao was very interested. Raising ducks was actually not difficult. The Ling tribe had both land and wetlands. They could use bamboo to fence off an area by the shore, just feed the newly hatched ducklings. They could use bamboo to make cages or nets, preventing duck bodyguards. They could also force-feed ducks with feed to fatten them up. You felt that such a trade was good for both parties. The Han tribe could get duck meat without raising ducks, duck eggs, and feathers. The Ling tribe could get cloth and animal products. And even if the Ling tribe didn't join the Han tribe, it would still be equivalent to working for the Han tribe. A week later, Ling Chao and the others learned to prepare bamboo preparations. Early this morning, you came to the riverside to see them off. Because their bamboo rafts had been disassembled, the Han tribe sent the newly built Xiaozhou to escort them back. They also sent a 15-person delegation, led by the leader of the Chai clan. There were people skilled in growing rice and weaving rattan baskets, as well as soldiers for protection, as well as a messenger giant infant. The Chai clan leader was formerly the chief of the Shiboluo tribe. The Shiboluo tribe and the Ling tribe had similar living environments. He was very suitable for helping the Ling tribe choose land and teaching them to grow rice. They would stay there for over a month this time to help the Ling tribe plant rice well and plan out the duck farms. Immediately, Ling Chao and the others followed the delegation, leaving by small wooden boat. You had been in the new city for half a month. During this period, they had communication with Hanyang City and learned that Hanyang City's construction was progressing smoothly. 2 teaching buildings had already been completed, and the other 2 were also being built urgently. The new district and Hanyang City had different plans. The new district was laid out in a rectangular fashion. It was larger than Hanyang City. It had 2 main streets, divided into 4 large rectangular districts. Each large district was further divided into 4 small districts, a total of 16 small districts. But now the population of the new district was continuously increasing. Besides the Han tribe's own people, there were also many laborers. The number was almost 5 digits. Residences needed to be built in the city, factories and warehouses, such as a timber processing plant, a blacksmith's workshop, as well as areas for raising livestock and storing grain, and feed warehouses. These already occupied 3 districts. Moreover, residential areas in the new district occupied a large amount of land. Even if the remaining 13 districts were all built as residences, they still couldn't accommodate nearly 10,000 people. Therefore, all were in the branch city. You originally planned in Xianxia and Hanyang build a relay station between the cities. A village station, but there wasn't enough water to grow rice. Couldn't satisfy their own food needs. So, they had to wait until the corn and soybeans successfully germinated. To promote corn and soybeans, which don't require much water, before this village could be built. For now, they can only follow the original plan, to build another settlement north of the existing one. The specifications are the same. It will also be divided into 16 districts, to alleviate the pressure of insufficient living space. You give Big Tree the construction task for the second settlement. Then continue researching papermaking. He wanted to find mechanized methods to replace purely manual processing. To increase the speed of papermaking, he thought of using bamboo to weave a long bamboo mat, to serve as a conveyor belt, with a heated bed underneath, allowing the pulp to be steam dry during the conveying process. But they still needed to solve how to spread the pulp evenly onto the conveyor belt. And the speed had to be fast, without interruption in the middle. Just then, a message by Eagle arrived from Hanyang City, saying that an inspection team from 2 northern tribal alliances had arrived. This inspection team consisted of 37 people, who were high-ranking members of the 2 alliances. They brought many plateau wild greens, and carried on their backs heirloom poetic tablets depicting mythological stories. The inspection team arrived outside Hanyang City. They were deeply impressed by the blue brick city. The neat brickwork looked as if it could only be built by gods. Continuation of previous line. As they got closer, they saw children herding sheep and playing on a football field. Bypassing the football field, they saw a clear moat. They felt the city was too strong. Even man-eating creatures would be helpless against it. At the city gate, the elder and the steward welcomed them. 2 members of the surveying team served as their translators. Entering the inner city, they saw vehicles pulling bricks towards the city center. The streets were paved with very flat blue bricks, and water flowed beneath the perforated blue bricks. Houses on both sides of the street had smoke curling from their chimneys, and the aroma of food. Arriving at the central district, they saw 2 3-story tube-style buildings. Similar buildings were also under construction opposite them. So many people were busy. They were shocked that these buildings were built by human labor. The elder led them to their prepared accommodation, telling them that the leader had gone to the new city and would return tomorrow. Today they could visit the tribe. The inspection team members were very curious, asking when the leader would arrive tomorrow, and if it was true that he had a long-nosed giant beast as a mount. The steward said the leader would return tomorrow riding an elephant. Very quickly, they then asked if they could see the food and how it was obtained.